We're live. Mike's hot. We're going, baby. Josh Duggar was found guilty, gang. And we're going to get the scoop on that right now. Let's check this out.
Josh Duggar has been found guilty on child pornography charges. According to local news outlet KNWA, a jury on Wednesday found the former reality star, political activist, and father of 7 guilty of 2 charges of receiving and possessing child sexual abuse material. Duggar faces up to 20 years of imprisonment and up to $250,000 in fines on each of the 2 counts. The outlet reports that his sentencing will occur at a later date,
and what I heard
which has
about
not been announced
sounded
yet.
like the
former reality
contents
star
of
has been on trial
Peter
in federal
Heyman's
court in
stuff.
Fayetteville,
It did. It was like
last
almost
week,
relevant
with his
to
wife
a
and some family members
podcast we
watching
did
daily
that
from the front
day.
row. By the time the jury began deliberating, prosecutors and the defense
between
had
this
painted
and
2
Maxwell.
totally separate portraits of Duggar. The prosecutors portrayed him as a sophisticated criminal seeking out depraved content about children. Meanwhile, his defense team argued he was a naive local businessman with a homeschool GED, unwittingly exploited by someone else. The verdict comes about 2 years after Homeland Security agents first searched Duggar's wholesale motor cars in 2019. During the search, they seized 2 personal devices and a work desktop that became key to the case. He was subsequently indicted earlier this year on both of his charges.
Wow.
They had crazy evidence on him, man. That was, and good, just being from Arkansas, we heard all about that all the time.
Oh, yeah.
I'm from Arkansas, especially as basically a native, lived there so long. So, gross.
I don't think anybody from that area was surprised except for his supporters.
Yeah, gross. But thought we'd start off hot with that from who is it? Where did we pull this from? People Magazine of all places posted this video. So shout out People Magazine. I know about American news. What is happening in Spain? Words, Susanna.
I hear volcanoes.
Yeah, there's times I feel like I know more about what's happening in Florida than I do in the state I'm living in.
Oh, yeah.
Just because of the amount of weird shit happening in Florida all the time.
Look, man, all I'm saying is that we all know Ohio's got just as wild of residents. Why don't we see more Ohio man content?
Right? Ohio is buck wild.
It is.
I bet you Idaho has something.
Fields.
I bet you they got something running around in those fields but naked. Probably a bunch of weirdos looking like Brian Laundrie, being a problem for everybody. Let's see here.
I think they have stricter media laws as far as when they can start talking about crimes and things. Whereas in Florida, they just get all the info as soon as it hits the police.
I could see that. Every state is basically its own nation.
Yeah. Whoa. See, I kind of wish it was like that here sometimes. Like, every state kind of had its own level of independence. And
I mean, we do to a degree, but in many ways not.
I wish it was, I wish there were some things that were handled on a federal level that were allowed to be handled state to state.
Yeah.
Like, stay out of pot. Feds, just stay out of it. It's not, it's for the states anyway. And, but what up, Justin? I didn't even see you pop in here. Sorry, the setup,
I think I literally popped in the second before I started talking.
Oh, hell yeah. How are you doing today?
Starting to feel better.
Good.
Excellent.
Negative tests all around, so we're good.
Oh, hell yeah. That's always good. That confirmation, baby. That
Look, apparently all you have to do is gargle normal mouthwash. Ron Johnson said it earlier today.
Yeah. That's he
did.
I have a that's a good segue into this. I think I have the story pulled up here. Is this
No, that I think is just some story on the page. There we go.
Let's listen to this article now. Let's see if we can get them to...
Just a quick word from our sponsor.
McDonald's, the golden...
Hell no McDonald's ad, dude. The fuck?
So close.
Man, I thought I would get away with that not having to read this. How's your vision, special guest? Do you feel like reading this?
Oh, yeah. During a virtual town hall, Republican Wisconsin Senator Ron Johnson said that, quote, standard gargle mouthwash kills coronaviruses like COVID-19. Scientific research and mouthwash companies do not back up his claim. By the way, he said, standard gargle mouthwash has been proven to kill the coronavirus, Johnson claimed during the Wednesday event. If you get it, you may reduce viral replication. Why not try all these things?
I mean, if it's like pure alcohol, it would kill what's in your mouth at that time.
Exactly.
Yes, that's such a weird...
It just boggles my mind that the National Institute of Health tells people, do nothing. Maybe take Tylenol, he added.
Oh my god. That's okay, so maybe we do have him saying it from Twitter.
But there are things you can do, again, vitamin D, zinc, keep yourself healthy. Vitamin C, by the way, standard gargle, mouthwash has been proven to kill the coronavirus. Even if you get it, you may reduce viral replication. There's all why not try all these things? It just boggles my mind that the NIH continues to tell people
Look,
nothing.
I'm going to tell everybody right now my immediate feelings are, one, he's not wrong, right? Like it's not wrong that it may lower viral load. That's immediately apparent to me. Two, man, what is with the Republicans when they do have something decent or reasonable to say? They're only capable of ever expressing it in the stupidest way possible.
That it seems to be a fucking problem.
Like I'm not saying that this is a treatment, right, per se, right? One, I don't know shit about medicine per se. I'm just a guy who reads. But absolutely it seems to me that it can lower replication, any replication taking place inside your mouth, or maybe if you're lucky in your sinuses. But it's a whole body problem, man.
Yeah. That fucking wild.
So once again, there may be some validity to maybe that makes it less severe for some people, but I believe that the way it's being presented seems to massively overemphasize the potential benefit.
Yeah, he must be conflating a small piece of something he heard. Like there's no way that he heard it like that.
Hey,
like
kudos
he just presented it
for not telling the nation to shoot up bleach.
Yeah, that's some like Cliff from Cheers bar knowledge. Like you were saying earlier, like that's almost like like he has to know this is a bit, right? That's how I felt by the end of him talking. I'm like, this is a bit, right?
Well, I think something that if we're going to be fair, I suspect this man has spoken to doctors that he knows. That doesn't mean he's got the consensus of the scientific establishment. Just a few doctors that he knows. That'd be my guess. I'm guessing here. Most of these people don't totally shoot their mouths off. They've talked to some people that they trust, which is how everybody works, Yeah. It's just these are just human beings that we've elected into power that are making decisions like these as best they're capable. And unfortunately, what almost every politician is good at is getting elected and not much else.
Yeah. Very. Yeah. Wolf Blitzer's good at reading a teleprompter. Not much else. We found out through Celebrity Jeopardy.
Yeah.
Like Wolf Blitzer turns out to be the worst person on Jeopardy ever. Like,
look, everybody nowadays is a hyper professional who's specialized, and his specialization is sounding like he's authoritative on television while reading.
Yeah. Not
actually knowing anything, just presenting. He's a presenter. Like that's the difference between a presenter and a journalist, We don't really like journalists anymore.
Yeah. Host and main act, There's kind of just a difference, Some people are real comfortable being that host for forever,
Hey, are you coming through? Yeah, you're coming through.
Yeah. That should be Gucci. But man, that's speaking of people coming through. Some investigators in the UK came through with a straight up little cookie crumb trail of cocaine all the way to Boris Johnson's office. Did you hear about that yesterday?
I had heard, about like basically his whole push against drugs is a big cover because there's so much drugs, obviously, that they found after testing all throughout the Parliament building. That's what I heard.
Yeah, but I mean, okay, so places they searched specifically, washrooms all the way to his office, the area near his office, and his office.
Oh yeah, I absolutely believe Boris Johnson really likes cocaine.
Yeah. Like,
Have you seen him?
he looks like somebody who, when he does it, his hair stands up.
Yeah.
Like it's almost
Yeah.
like his body loves it too. Like cartoonishly, he loves it.
Just imagine Boris Johnson touching a Tesla coil.
He's
That's him after a bump.
He's
Hair stands straight up, flops down however it wants. He just pushes it out of his face, moves on.
cites a problematic poem word for word. Gets told by PR to stop.
We don't realize that his war on drugs is actually a war on high drugs prices.
Yeah.
He's going to get the price of cocaine in England down to the floor.
I will say I believe he's nice to most children he encounters because he probably doesn't know if it's his or not. He might not know if that's his kid or not. Boris Johnson's an interesting character.
He really, really is. If it turned out that he was some sort of long-term intelligence plant, I would not be surprised. But that's how I felt about Trump, man. Trump's weird. Trump's a really weird cat because of the people that he was associated with, like Roy Cohn. And like the story of him in the 80s getting into a bidding war with Merv Griffin.
Yeah.
So that he could buy Resorts International, which had that super secret private intelligence branch called Intertel, or International Intelligence Incorporated, that was mostly old CIA, FBI, and military. Hey, Debbie.
Yeah, hey guys. Sorry, I had the windows organized in a way I couldn't see the chat and didn't realize it until I saw it on the screen. What's up, gang? Glad you guys are here.
We're making fun of our leaders, as usual.
We think Trump's hair does when he does cocaine just gets stronger. It just grows more hateful in its willpower. It doesn't grow longer. It doesn't stand on it. It just gains power.
I think that's a wig.
You think so? You think it's tie-ins?
I think it's a bad wig.
A bad wig.
It's either a bad wig or it's tie-ins.
I heard a hair person say on TikTok forever ago, a person who does like those kinds of tie-ins, like, now I know exactly what that is. Sometimes you can even take dude's existing hair and tie that shit in. And it kind of looks like some tie-ins. You can even wash them, I guess, for a certain amount of time.
Look,
hold up.
Here's what everybody needs to hope doesn't happen. That Trump doesn't spend the next, hey Christy, doesn't spend the next few years growing out a beard and shaving his head.
That'd be...
I've seen the
Bilzerian with it?
I've seen the Photoshop, and he would look a lot less goofy.
He'd have the
and
daddy...
that's sort of scary, just understanding the psychology of people.
He'd have the daddy crowd, but the daddy crowd swapped sides. They're into Suboxone bodies now. They're into skinny tattoo Pete Davidsons now.
That's only because they've been told to.
It's because it's the word on the street.
Yeah.
The gossip on the street is, dad bods are out, Pete Davidson bodies are back, baby. Look like you've been at the methadone clinic, got 80,000 tattoos, no free space. One of them's a fucking, logo for a show you've never watched. That's my favorite. Pete Davidson had like a Stark tattoo before he even saw the show. He's like, I like wolves, man. Dude, it's your body. It's forever. What if you?
No, it's a notebook in high school that I'm doodling on and throwing stickers on.
Yeah, like you got to take that shit with you to death. Like you're gonna be.
I'm not saying don't get tattoos. I'm saying make good choices that you'll enjoy.
Make sure it's not a logo for a show you've never fucking seen.
Yeah, that one's.
But yeah, apparently they're back on that trip. But I brought up Boris Johnson earlier to pivot over to the UK. I wanted to talk about the UK Parliament declaring a genocide.
Well, it wasn't the Parliament. Apparently, it's just one minister funded an independent investigation. Is what I was seeing.
Oh, really?
So, but like we on here, like for anyone who keeps up with online news, we on our World is One is basically the Russia Today of India.
Yeah. That's a really good way to describe
I'm not
it.
going to say they're exactly state funded because I haven't been able to track back that money trail, but they for all intents and purposes seem like they're functionally a state organ.
Oh, okay.
not the worst interpretation of geopolitics that you'll see, as long as you remember that it's always slanted toward making Modi's regime and India in general look good.
Yeah, like a lot of this stuff, you're watching it through a Dutch tilt, like as a Joker sometimes.
Yeah, no, you just have to keep in mind that like it's going to be super anti-China, like specifically because Weion's been called out by the Chinese government in the last couple of weeks.
Shit.
And Weion has really started fighting back. But they're also going to have, an anti-Pakistan slant, and in any of those Chinese Belt and Road Initiative, if that plays into the story, you will see them do their best to I don't want to say smear China. I don't even disagree with their analysis, but be aware like what it is that we're watching.
Yeah, that's oof. Yeah, let's press forward into this and.
China's ongoing crackdown and abuse in Xinjiang has been unanimously declared a genocide by British lawmakers. Lawmakers have also called on the UK government to use international law to bring the genocide to an end. Introducing the motion, Conservative lawmaker Nusrat Ghani told lawmakers that while we must never misuse the term genocide, we must not fail to use it when it's warranted. Nusrat Ghani was one of the 5 UK parliamentarians sanctioned by China. Ghani said genocide meant intent to destroy in whole or in part a national, ethnic, racial or religious group. All 5 criteria of genocide are evident at taking place in Xinjiang. While UK ministers say that any decisions on declaring it a genocide is up to the courts, Ghani said every route to court is blocked by China. Meanwhile, the UK Parliament has also stepped up pressure on ministers to go further in their criticism of Beijing. MPs have called to the UK government.
You're seeing a big alignment against China right now geopolitically,
as genocide in China,
at least in the West. But also, that includes Australia. Because China is so obviously expansionistic, people are very worried that they're going to retake Taiwan and what that will mean both for Japan
so far, the government
and
has imposed sanctions on some Chinese officials.
For Korea.
Also
Japan especially. Like Abe Shinzo came out the other day and said anything that's Taiwan's problem is Japan's problem. That makes it America's problem. And he's not exactly wrong.
Following a debate, the House of Commons passed.
So we see a building of an Axis and Allies situation. We can kind of almost make this black and white now.
Absolutely. We're seeing what I'm afraid of is a building to what's going to amount to a world war that's going to pop off between India and Pakistan as a proxy, and their nuclear powers. Keep that in mind. Right now, Pakistan's massively destabilized. They've been having to take loans to keep their government running, and like I'm not sure. I don't think it's president, but their head of executive, is functionally saying, yeah, well, we don't have the money to keep running if we don't take these loans. So they're taking a ton of loans from China, which makes India feel hyper threatened. Plus, keep in mind, Pakistan's been their historic enemy about as long as we've had writing.
That's true. That's
so you've got a big tension there, and China's looking to expand at the same time Russia's looking to expand. Russia doesn't know who it wants to ally with. It doesn't want to ally with China. Strategically, that might make the most sense if it wants to be legitimate in its taking back of Ukraine.
Yeah.
And if it takes Ukraine, it'll take Poland.
Weird, deep question. If you had to throw a percentage number on it out of 100, what is the likelihood we will see a world war with these two factions in our lifetime? It's okay to be wrong because we'll be old by the time we could prove it.
Well, no, my worry is in our lifetime. My worry is that we're seeing a very extreme increase in the likelihood of it within the next 5 years. Like, do we make it past the next 5 years? We're probably fine.
Yeah.
For a while.
Yeah.
But a lot of it has to do with China really aggressively pushing to take back Taiwan and control the South China Sea.
Okay.
And also Russia's push to re-expand to controlling the borders functionally of the USSR.
So really, the ball is in their court at this point.
It is.
With escalation.
And, well, we're like, when I say we, I mean what you would traditionally call the NATO powers are in a bad situation because the war is totally on their fronts. We're the ones going around the world to deal with it.
Yeah,
And then that's hard. That's no different than fighting Germany back in the day.
that's true.
It's a tough situation.
Logistical nightmare too.
Yeah, and keep in mind, when I talk about this, it may sound like I'm on board with that whole repugnant philosophy, repugnant ideology, but geopolitics is just geopolitics. That's like
different when we're talking.
China's going to do what China wants to do. Russia's going to do what Russia wants to do. No amount of us being hyper moral will change that. We should just allow those things, though, to inform us, as opposed to saying we'll beat them with flowery, happy thoughts and moral admonishment. That's not going to work because they don't care.
It takes a little more than that. You said something the other day that led me on a train of thought and put words in my head that are really valuable to me now in retrospect. But we both prefer the pacifist route, the not harm route. But you do have to have access to the harm route to be able to have a choice.
Yeah,
a choice implies you can do both harm or not.
I think that in many ways, like you have to come to the conclusion. I have to. You come to whatever conclusion you want. That we owe a lot of those cultures at least protection against people coming in trying to tell them what to do. Look at Hong Kong.
Yeah,
because of how we carved up the world after World War II.
Yeah,
like that's a big part of it. It's like we functionally kept them from being able to grow in their own national strength out of a fear of communism, justified or not.
Yeah.
And that means that at this point, look, if we want them to be capable on their own, to be able to stand up to threats, we have to at least support them. That includes, Taiwan makes a quarter of the chips in the world. They have some of the best chip manufacturers out there. And I mean talent, not just facilities.
Yeah. The massacre at Katyn in Poland was one of those that I think is a big reason why there was almost you saw no culture pop up in some, like no nationalist zeal.
Well, because
it was frightening at that time.
Because immediate post-war in the Balkan states and in Europe in general, the Nazis, to my mind, had dug in secret and were making culture specifically to drive them into fighting over culture wars, which doesn't allow them to build up a state.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Right, and that's one of the reasons that you still see so much far right, like hardcore far right mindsets coming out of Eastern Europe, and what amount to modern Nazis? Neo-Nazi I think would be a good term, but I think you could probably track back a continuity to the original Nazis by culture creators who were allied with and sympathetic to, if not directly part of the Nazi regime that fled, and understood that if they were going to get their message out there, they had to put it in the minds of people through art. Mm-hmm. The mindset that leads to that ideology, so it would be normalized, and that was really, really strongly done throughout Eastern Europe, especially starting in the 80s and 90s, once you saw the Iron Curtain functionally fall and then the wall fall.
Yeah.
Like most people don't look into, like, when the wall fell and suddenly Germany reunified, nobody saw that coming. And a big part of what came out of the woodwork on the West Germans or the East German side to help tear down the wall were all these hardcore right-wing groups.
Oh.
Most people are unaware of that history.
That's true. Yeah, no, there were some pretty fascistic elements.
I would say that it suddenly became almost a majority of them, just groups that had functionally been in hiding under the Stasi and the Soviet Empire, fighting against the communists. Almost certainly part of the equivalent of like the counterpart to the Stay Behind groups.
Yeah.
That were working in West Germany.
Hey, hello, John B.
Hey, what's up, John?
Good to hear from you, bud. How you doing today?
Hey. Well, I'm coming in cold. I haven't heard but like 4 seconds of your show today, and I apologize for that.
Oh, that's
but
okay.
I really did. I wanted to jump in and just make one statement, and I'll be back on my way. Okay.
What do we got,
and I'll be listening. But Ari Anthony got on my Facebook, and I certainly invite you all to come over to Facebook. I have Dr. Zayas as my profile picture, John Branch. Okay.
Gotcha.
Anyway, That being said, okay, I was telling her that I sort of feel like when we get together on your show, all right, I feel like we're the Avengers or something, right? And you're like the fearless leader, the Nick Fury. And I'd probably be Bruce Banner, just laid back until I get mad. But that's the way I feel about it. And so, in our private lives, okay, or our other lives away from the show, okay, you don't really see, Tony Stark really hanging out much with Captain America. Understandable, okay? So it's just kind of weird. And so, case in point, you guys were discussing one time some stuff about Henry Ford, okay?
Yeah.
And there was something
earlier today before the show.
We were, yeah. Yeah, same wavelength. Okay. Yeah.
Well, you would. I tell you, there's not an episode I don't listen to where I don't learn at least one little thing. So that day, I learned that Henry Ford had actually gotten some kind of award from the Nazis. Okay,
yeah, that he never gave back,
and he didn't give it back, right? So my guy who runs the morning meetings, who owns this place, okay, 29 years of sobriety, and he can be a touch egotistical, okay? And the way he takes information, sometimes he thinks you're trying to outdo him or something.
Gotcha.
So case in point, he mentions that, Henry Ford, and I don't know how the conversation came up, but he said, yeah, and he was a communist, And so I said, funny you should mention him. Just the other day, I was listening to a podcast. I don't want to explain what all we are here, So I said, I was listening to a podcast, and these guys were talking about how Henry Ford didn't want to give back an award he had gotten from the Nazis because he was such a sympathizer, and I just thought that was interesting. Well, instead of thinking that was interesting and an interesting piece of trivia, the guy says to me, didn't I just say that? I said, well, actually, sir, all you said was that he was a communist. I was just giving you a little further.
They're both totalitarians, but two massively different groups.
Yeah, he just threw a blanket statement over, like a generalization. You're like, no.
You want another bit of Ford trivia related to that?
What's that?
Okay, Germany. Think about Germany, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whole wars run on gasoline and diesel. Where'd they get it? They're surrounded on all sides. Where'd they get their gas?
Yeah,
I think I heard you say that before.
They made their gas. They made it based on a patent that Henry Ford's company owned, and Ford got paid out of all of that after the war. Like, part of it was that they had to pay back every bit of gas that they made.
Yeah.
Well, so yeah, I bounced that off of him. And he obviously took it that he actually said out loud, so you're trying to show up the master. In other words, what I had to say, this guy doesn't know anything. I mean, he's still a good guy, believe it or not.
He's turning things into competitions that aren't.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so he says, he goes, I just explained, and then you had to come back, and it was like your attitude is, oh, this guy doesn't know shit, but check this out. I said, well, sir, I really didn't mean it that way at all. And that just told me even more, okay? Yeah. It doesn't make me want to leave or anything, but it tells me even more that, like, this is a whole separate place I come, as a sanctuary with you guys. And then I have to go back out there with the regular people that don't get it, okay? And it's just funny. It's something
most people don't want to communicate. Yeah. Right. And they also, they don't understand that some people communicate by bringing up relevant information or even comparable information, that it's just a communication strategy. A lot of people, they think you only communicate one way. And when you break out of that form, they get frustrated. What it reminds me of is something I learned when I was studying a guy named David Snyder, who's a hypnotist, is that communication, miscommunication's the biggest reason that we have issues. A lot of it has to do with we define words differently, and respect is a big one. Like, some people, like myself, even though I may react badly, in general, my feeling is you respect me if you're willing to tell me the truth. And by that, I mean, like, am I fucking up? And you're going to tell me? Well, I believe that you're not attacking me, even if I feel attacked in the moment. I understand that you care about me enough to just tell me I'm fucking up. Other people are like, well, yeah, but if you respect me, you'll let me know this information in a way that doesn't make me feel bad.
Right. And I think this guy has trouble with that, and he admits all his weaknesses, and he doesn't talk about being a little egotistical, but I guess most people don't notice if they're doing that, but he's pretty educational. But like one time he asked us if we could find a book because he knows I go on Amazon. I know a lot of places. And I found on one of these sites the book he was looking for because he wants everybody to read it. Okay. And I found it, and he was putting something in a drawer or something. And I walked up and said, "Hey, Bill, I found some of that book for you." It was after a meeting. And he said, "Can't you see that I'm packing my stuff up? I got to get out of here. You heard me say that, but you want to stop me to tell me something." I go, "Sorry, sir, never mind." And, so
Yeah.
it puts you in your place. But I just think it's so funny. So this is now, Murky is like my secret identity.
Right.
That's
Like, listen, I'm gonna jump out, dudes. Okay. And I will be listening though, and I'll talk to you maybe sometime tomorrow, okay?
Yeah, man, we appreciate you.
Sounds perfect. We love you, brother.
I sent you that link today about the talking about the film raids that went on,
Dude, I watched
You
that.
had special guests.
I had no clue that wasn't officially settled until 1984 at the Supreme Court level. Because as a kid, my parents had like we were part of that 10% that had a VCR. We had a VHS player when I was a kid, like a young kid. And we had video stores like by 1981, 82. So I just assumed that, them trying to argue that the VCR was predominantly for time-shifting broadcast media is just ridiculous.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But to me, the fact they were bringing the FBI in on people they would call a large collection, anything 6 films or over, like that was just part of information control. To me, that jives just exactly with them, like not allowing the Zapruder film out until like 78 or whatever.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That stuff is fascinating to me, though. I mean, the restoration of film, the decay of film. There's a certain movies out there that are considered lost. We'll probably never see, like London After Midnight with Lon Chaney.
All the lost Doctor Who episodes.
Well, one of the things that they
BBC
talked
was
about in
just
there
scrubbing their archives
is that the ironic twist is that now a lot of those lost films are found in private collections.
Yeah.
And dude, they were going after big stars over this shit, man.
It used to be like a clout thing. These rare.
Yeah.
We were talking about this also earlier before the show.
Yeah, but because of that video that you linked, man, that's really good. I urge everybody to go into the Discord and find that.
Yeah.
I tell you, man, I'm trying to. It's like not coming over so often, and talking because it's quality, not quantity, right, Mark?
Oh yeah.
And one other thing though since you brought it up, Nosferatu, the original Dracula with Max Schreck was the guy's name, 1920 something. They actually got sued by the estate of what's his name?
Bram Stoker.
Yeah.
No, because they said they didn't change it enough, and it was obviously Dracula.
Dracula, yeah.
And I don't think that we had the fair use ruling at that point yet.
Yeah.
Or the ruling on parody and satire either.
Yeah.
Well, they ordered all those copies of that movie destroyed.
Yeah.
But we still have it to this day because a private guy had it in his collection forever. And sometimes, like they tore in Georgia somewhere, they tore a swimming pool out. Okay, an in-ground pool. They tore it out of the ground, and underneath were hundreds of cans of film.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah.
Dating.
I didn't hear about that.
That's how they find history in the UK also all the time. That's like you'll find like either BBC shit that was scrubbed from the archive that BBC really wants a hold of, or something like Richard III's body under a parking lot.
I remember hearing about the Richard III body.
Yeah, you'll end up with some kooky stuff sometimes found just under existing structures. You have only so much land mass on the planet.
Right.
And only so much like usable logical working space to house humans,
especially in England, where they've got a huge population density in their developed areas, and cities that are ancient, literally ancient,
about as finite as you could imagine a mass to house a metropolis.
Can you imagine what could be found? What they must find in Japan?
Oh, all the time, buried deep. Buried deep. But John, just to cue you in on what we were just chatting about, we're covering the news here at the top of the show, and the UK Parliament declares a genocide in China's Xinjiang
Xinjiang province. Against the Uyghurs. I think most anybody that's been following the news who's not just a total simp for China has known this has been going on for like 2-3 years.
Yeah.
But the Chinese, man, they've gotten to the point that they're problematic religious minority populations. So like the Uyghurs, the people in Tibet, Falun Gong at one point, they'll imprison them, organ harvest them. Like it's bad. One of the reasons for Falun Gong and okay, there's a big power struggle in China right now between the current president Xi Jinping and the last president whose name I can't remember right now.
Yeah.
The last president.
I know it's like an executable offense if you say what the current dude looks like Winnie the Pooh.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. Xi Jinping. So I didn't say that, but apparently
he does. I'm just not going to China
to say.
But what's going on there is the power struggle between the two. Xi Jinping has the military, but the other guy still has the internal state security apparatus. You got me? Like in terms of loyalty all throughout China. And when they cracked down on Falun Gong, it's because all of the Falun Gong practitioners in general were sympathetic to the last president.
Oh, okay, that makes sense then.
Right, so they're going after everybody who's involved in religion functionally over there because it's technically outlawed by the Chinese state, by the Communist Party. And
I'm going to give you an idiotic statement, okay, and you can correct me, please. I'll hang up and you guys can talk about it. The only way I heard about all that you're talking about right now, and there was like concentration camps or something. At the time they made it's got to go back to a movie for me, they were making that Mulan movie, the live action version.
Right.
And apparently someone in that cast, maybe even the main girl or somebody, had a real political opinion of the stuff going on over there.
Yeah.
And caused them a little bit of a controversy, if I remember correctly.
Oh, yeah, no, I want to say that they locked out the movie. I can't remember. No, they're having an issue with that right now. Like, they've got a tennis star that they functionally disappeared. They made a proof of life video with her where they even pointed out where they made a point to mention the day. Right? Because she straight up got on, I think it's called Weibo, which is Weibo, which is their Twitter, and said that this particular high up communist official had raped her.
Whoa.
And so they're having
that's right. And then she was like cryptically dropping messages potentially.
And then she disappeared for some weeks and they scrubbed her account and everything. And then, this like people have been just getting hugely mad about it.
I know, we talked about it on the stream before, just the amount of people that have gone missing off their cell phone grid.
Oh yeah, like I think it was 1.1 million IPs in a day.
In one day. That's a lot of
because they'd rounded up all of these Uyghur Muslims.
That's wild.
Well, two things that to me are really terrifying is the not Chinese, but I want to say Arab, whatever. The guy who worked for the Washington Post, but he went over to the embassy, and apparently they cut him up right there in the embassy and took him out in pieces.
Dude, France just charged somebody yesterday with that. His name was Jamal Khashoggi. Now this is interesting. Yes. You're going to find this really interesting. You know who his father was?
Ooh.
Not his father, his uncle, was Adnan Khashoggi, who was at one point the richest man in the world in the 80s and was one of the financiers for the Cotton Club.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. This guy, this Khashoggi guy was a real activist journalist.
The fucking Cotton Club. It always comes back to one of these club circles.
Well, it comes back to huge international money laundering that was far more exposed in the 70s and 80s, but they've learned how to hide now.
Oh yeah.
Like that's why you're not going to see me focus much on past the 80s.
That makes a lot of sense.
Well, I'm gonna go for real. I promise. But I mentioned two things, right?
Yeah.
So that guy, the Khashoggi guy, and then the other one that I just heard about yesterday. I knew nothing about this.
Mm-hmm.
You guys probably like the Summer Wells thing. Two young ladies, I'm talking about like 15, maybe 16, were on some road tracks messing around and hanging out, and they get murdered, and their bodies are found. And it was one of the scariest things, man, that the one girl had the wherewithal to film this dude
to record
Yeah,
it, and they caught him saying, "Go down the hill here." Like, yeah, they
Wow,
made
no, I didn't hear about this.
They made an arrest in it, and it turned out to be a guy who they believe they've linked to catfishing and soliciting multiple photos from underage girls. They found him through an online digital history, but he was attached to an account that was in communication to both of those girls. Those girls thought they were going to meet up with somebody that day. That turned out to be it was a catfish situation. This overweight serial killer, turns out, was using this male model. They end up grilling this male model, like, what the hell? And he's like, it wasn't me. You can have all my phones and see, I'm just a himbo. And it turns out, it was this kind of
fucking wild.
Yeah.
Debbie just said Vanderbilt used to be the richest man in the world. The funny thing,
Vanderbilt used to be
you still see one of his scions out there. Anderson Cooper is from the Vanderbilt family.
Yeah.
I was talking about that yesterday. Yeah.
It's just like Tucker Carlson with the Swanson fortune.
Yep.
You know?
No, man. Hey, guys, if you want to understand this, look up Operation Mockingbird.
Oh, damn straight. Damn.
That's what my buddy told me. But that's funny you should say. I told you before. The old conspiracy guy here, the old burned out hippie, says to me, "Look up Project Mockingbird."
Yeah.
Like he's telling me something in the bed. And I went home and I said, "Okay, I'll check it out." So I walked over here and checked it out. Fascinating stuff, man.
Yeah.
The guy's legit, man. You know, he would fit in perfectly with this show. But I tried to give him the link to get to the tattered map, and I don't know if he ever did it or not.
Gotcha.
Whatever. But at least I'm here, and I appreciate you guys. I love you guys, and I'm going to disappear now, okay?
Hey,
okay, John, you have a good one, man.
You have a good one, John.
Hey, and remember, it's quality, not quantity, right?
Damn
Right.
straight. Hey,
Yeah,
you have a good
all
one.
right, man. I'm trying to work with it. All right, see you later, buddy.
You have
You have a good one.
All right, we've got another story up. It's something that kind of fits into themes in the broad spectrum of what we've been talking about the last couple of weeks on the tattered map.
Yeah.
We had an ODU professor come out and say the word pedophile shouldn't be used to refer to people who are attracted to children.
And this goes back to, you watch the last tattered map, or you watch the one we're going to do later today, which ties to the last one. They've been trying to normalize this sort of shit going in when I say Western culture, specifically English-speaking culture.
Yep.
Since the late 70s and early 80s, and they tried to do it at the source in England in their government.
Yeah. It's despicable, but we're gonna turn it over to 13 News now. It's just a couple minutes long. We're gonna watch their coverage on the situation and discuss afterwards. Let's see what we got here.
New at 5:30, an Old Dominion University professor is taking a lot of heat. Alan Walker said the word pedophile shouldn't be used to refer to people who are attracted to children because it comes with a stigma.
Walker also said people can be attracted to children without
I love the look on this lady's face with this whole story. And the dude's, honestly.
The professor said, and the response from Walker.
He looks like he'd dome someone. 360 no scope.
The controversy surrounding Old Dominion University professor Dr. Alan Walker centers around their argument that not everyone who is attracted to children will abuse children.
It isn't actually a choice. So people are just born with this condition.
In an interview with the Prostasia Foundation, Walker said the term minor attracted people, or MAPS, should be used to describe people who are attracted to children.
It's less stigmatizing.
If you go back and watch last week's
Tattered Map,
you can see an interview with the people behind the PIE, or Pedophile Information Exchange, where they specifically say this exact same thing in 1982.
Despicable, disgusting.
You know, and it's like we're seeing, especially in light of Savile and everything else that's coming up, that it's just another front trying to be like, no, we're right, normalize this. You know, and you look at like Josh Duggar getting sentenced or found guilty today, or you look at Maxwell and Epstein and them intentionally going after young people.
Yeah. Like specifically saying to drivers and stuff like, we got to stop for the nubiles.
Yeah.
Like this is and I don't. Yeah, of course it has. Should have.
You know, guys, I'm not. It's like I said earlier. I'm not trying to start some sort of moral panic over this. That's not an appropriate response because moral panics lead to violence.
Yep.
But it's definitely a thing we should look at and be aware of and not gloss over. And when I say fight back against, you know, what I mean is in no way legitimize and in fact express our profound disapproval and disgust at.
Take the time, like we do on this program in particular, to dissect and discuss sometimes sensitive topics.
Yeah.
And that's, you know, so probably late on this, trigger warning, YouTube terms of service. We're going to press forward with this absurd TikTok. Again, personal opinion, this is crazy as hell. I fight against this kind of stuff.
Well, and it's absurd that it's a TikTok, knowing that TikTok is predominantly the children's platform.
There's so many children on TikTok seeing this. Who knows how many kids are you know, and they know that this.
Than other terms like pedophile. A lot of people, when they hear the term pedophile, they automatically assume that it means a sex offender. And that isn't true, and it leads to a lot of misconceptions about attractions toward minors.
But not everyone sees it that way, including people on campus like Andrew Limbakis, president of the ODU College Republicans.
I'm actually thinking about planning a peaceful protest against Alan Walker.
In the interview, Walker stressed child sexual abuse is never okay. They explained there is a difference between attraction and behavior. Walker said there is no morality attached to attraction because that's something we can't help. The Prostasia Foundation's executive director, Jeremy Malcolm, agrees.
What experts like Dr. Walker are saying is that telling these people that
notice
they
they hammer the word expert there.
Doomed to offend is counterproductive.
Criticism about Walker's comments prompted ODU and Walker to release statements over the weekend. The statement from the university reads, "An academic community plays a valuable role in the quest for knowledge. A vital part of this is being willing to consider scientific and other empirical data that may involve controversial issues and perspectives." For their part,
and that statement is true. That's exactly what we're trying to do here. But it's also important to recognize that a perspective can be profoundly misinformed and not correct just because the data set you happen to have may indicate a confirmation of that particular perspective. And when you're dealing with a situation that has such a profound set of implications as this, it's ridiculous to try and refer to it in such sanitized and statistical language.
I can't help but feel like strange motive behind it, and can't help but dissect the person who drops this kind of rhetoric. But I've said this in the past before with an employer we've had. There was a situation where special guest was working on a team I was leading, and the person who he replaced was like damn near underage when he was hired.
Yeah.
And for some reason, my elderly boss liked hanging out with teenagers a lot. And when they asked if it was cool to hire him, I said plainly, I don't like hanging out with teenagers.
Yeah.
And this is, in my opinion, I can't help it but feel this motive of this person wants to hang out with teenagers. They're on a university campus. And who knows how much access they have to the underage people coming to the gifted programs.
And I'm going to say right now, without even trying to mind read, the situation of power that they're in as an expert, we can call them an expert if you want.
Yeah.
I think that they probably fit the definition of expert as we use it.
Yeah.
I'll also say experts were really behind lobotomies for 5 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
Being a single expert means nothing.
Yeah.
And the implication that there's a consensus on this is ridiculous. And that's the way it's being presented, and I find that to be particularly insidious.
In my opinion, the right path as an educator, if you truly care about getting information to people, is somewhere between the balancing act of oratory, where you're dealing with social standards and understanding the room that you're in, but also applying and expressing facts. You know what I mean? Like from the establishment, whether they're right or wrong, because it's the establishment that's paying you.
Well, let's get to their next statement, because I've got a thought on that.
Yeah.
Walker said, child sexual abuse is an inexcusable crime. The goal of my research is to prevent crime. I embarked on this research in hopes of gaining understanding of a group that previously has not been studied in order to identify ways to protect children.
Okay, now let's pause.
Dana.
Everything about that is true and understandable.
Yeah.
From an academic sense. But it becomes a PR move to normalize these people without that understanding yet when you start making TikTok videos about it from your position as an expert in the field.
Yeah.
Like, therein's the issue. And I want to be clear. Like, what they're saying, I don't disagree with per se, but what they've done is separated from that. And I want to say it's separated, like, you can't bifurcate what they've done from that in the same way you can't bifurcate this statement from the general context of pedophilic abuse.
Yeah, that's
in our statement. And
absolutely.
in an attempt to do that, you're being so... man, I'm at a loss for words. You're sanitizing it in such a way by being so methodical that you're wholly... By making that video, you seem to be demonstrating that you don't understand why people are so outraged, and if you just explain it in statistical terms, everything will be fine.
There's a social ineptitude that is just glaringly obvious, and that's why it's shown up on a lot of cringe YouTube channels where people are like, "Holy!"
Well,
shit.
and I want to be
Look at
clear:
this.
the damaging aspect is that it's going to provide, without real scientific context or understanding to a whole group of children, a normalization of this, which means that they're going to be, to my mind, there will be a significant amount of them that will then feel more comfortable being around people who are self-professed minor attracted persons.
Yeah.
Like, and that's the insidious part of it to me.
Yeah. No, I feel that.
Now, it looks like we're at the end of the video anyway.
That's yeah. We're here at the end of this story.
Ms. Smith, 13 News Now.
Yeah.
Good Lord. The insidiousness, like, I won't lie. If you were to listen to the Tattered map chronologically as we've released them, when we hit last week...
Well, yeah,
like
I said, just doing the research on all this and getting all this stuff together, which I am relying on a ton of other people's research that I've already gotten to.
Yeah.
You know, and I would link you to their research, but I do not want to, like, I'm providing documents that they're using because I'm not looking to boost anyone else's message, not for my own self-aggrandizement, but because I don't know what their ideological outlook is. And within the realm of conspiratorial thinking and research, a lot of people, they've got an agenda.
Yeah.
So if you find my information elsewhere, good. Take it with a grain of salt if they're not telling you to think for yourself.
Yeah. Debbie Moore says, I watched a documentary where some men were attracted to children but didn't act on it. They were trying to get others to come forward and get help before they act.
See, Debbie, and I think that's a good thing. If a person can basically socially fall on their sword and say, I'm dealing with this, and I don't want to be a bad person, and I know that I'm not the only one, and I want other people to know you're not literally the only person out there that feels that way.
Yeah.
And we need to get help.
Yeah.
There's nothing because of the subject matter, I hesitate to say I find that admirable, but I really don't know a better word. That's somebody who's really like, I know I'm fucked up, and I'm admitting it, and I'm trying to make sure nothing bad happens. I want you all to know, and I want other people who are like me to know so that we can all get help and keep this from happening.
Yeah.
Holy God, how do you get mad at somebody for that? Right?
Exactly.
That's like no different than if your kid says, hey, you need to take me out of school and put me somewhere I can get help, or I'm going to shoot that place up.
Yeah.
A good on you, kid. That was the approach. You were having those feelings. You recognized it wasn't a good thing, and you recognized you didn't want to be a bad person. Good on you.
The way compassion would look in this instance would be getting that kid help.
Well, we know that so many child molesters were molested themselves.
Yeah.
You know, so if they're like it seems like they're trying to break that chain, good on them.
Yeah. Yeah. A place where they can actually talk about it. See, I do wish it was angled more toward kind of like what Debbie must have seen, like an angle like we need. It's It's a broken community.
Anybody who's a parent right now, part of their brain is screaming like a chimp, and for good reason.
Yeah, and they gotta.
I want to be clear.
Yeah, and they got to understand too, like the establishment, they want this kept. This will never be a social norm in history outside of places that were deviant and fell apart pretty quick.
Yeah, it never should be, and that's what's so insidious about an expert getting on TikTok and widebanding this message outside of, say, the consensus of everyone within their field as an expert. Yeah. That's a statement for a research paper.
Yeah, exactly. That's not that. Yeah, the fact that
I'm not into gatekeeping.
It's there on TikTok.
Like that's not the appropriate place to put it.
It's really not. It's really not. Well,
not as a professional.
Yeah.
Just a random person who's advocating for whatever and is into pop psychology and doesn't know what's going on. Yeah, sure, they're going to put that on TikTok. They don't have the same level of social responsibility.
Yeah. I'm wondering if ODU is going to do anything about this person teaching. I don't think they should be allowed to be in front of definitely underage people having made a TikTok like that.
They just demonstrated a profound social ineptitude to the point that it's terrifying that they're instructing people.
Period. Yeah, like they can't read a room.
Like considering the subject matter. Like if you're teaching physics, be as inept as you want.
Yeah,
that's different.
That's and that is an issue I have with some of today's like with cancel culture and some of the Me Too stuff is you have people who are, instead of admitting and seeking help with their social ineptitudes, are trying to bend a room to their will.
Exactly.
And it's too much. It's too much most of the time, and it's not how we've ever conducted ourselves through human history.
Well, you can't. The word I was looking for earlier is academic. You can't make all of human experience academic and then assume everyone is going to view it that way just because that's how you view the world.
Yeah.
Just because you're a fundamental rationalist materialist who views that things don't matter unless they can be proven through statistical analysis.
Yeah.
And then the only thing that matters about it is the fact that it was proven by statistical analysis.
Yeah. And if you're to constantly be inept and break away from social cues, you lose a certain tool, in my opinion, when it comes to your oratory skills. Look, like I was saying earlier, being a teacher can be difficult giving knowledge to somebody, right? I feel like it's somewhere between like reading your room and the black and white facts of science, right?
Yeah.
So sometimes some of the stuff that I've said that stuck with people the most is when I'm breaking decorum.
Right.
Because I've had such a calm conversation up until I broke decorum.
Right.
Or I use an example of something. I break it down into an analog or hyperbole that the story has a punchline that breaks decorum.
Yeah.
You throw a little curse word at a college student in a day where they've had nothing but censored content. Suddenly they remember that story, remember that time so-and-so cursed.
And dude, I'll tell you right now that function, that taboo that you put in there, improves recall.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's something that I learned from David Snyder, is that every time I curse in an environment where you're not really supposed to curse, I get 20 more minutes of profound attention.
Yeah.
On average.
Yeah.
Like not with every person, but the average person's going to be paying better attention to me for the next 20 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Man, we're right at it. We're at the bottom of this first hour, and it's time for the new way that we do ad breaks.
Oh.
And I've been pretty excited about it. Just have to do this the once, but I want to get it out in the first hour so that it's just free-form conversation after that. We've kind of covered the news. We'll probably pop in on the Kim Potter trial and check that out.
Yeah.
Because it's a live trial. Help,
Yeah.
do what I like to call in the YouTube game, dick ride the news. But real quick, a word from our sponsors, gang. Shoot an ad break for BARKBOX? Yeah, and no more, I can do that. Check this out. BARKBOX is a monthly subscription service providing dog products, services, and experiences. Bark services over 1 million dogs monthly through BARKBOX and Super Chewer subscriptions and retail distribution. Check out BARKBOX now. Exclusive link in description below. Yeah, no, I think I nailed it. I also got to do one for Atlas VPN. Okay, I'm going to do an ad break for Atlas VPN. Atlas VPN is a VPN. If you're searching the web without a VPN, you're not doing it anonymously. Exclusive link in the description below. Get a VPN. It's on us this month. Where'd I get a balaclava? Yeah, that does look like me in that GIF. That was a GIF. Yeah, we have a new way we do that shit now. I don't have to say it anymore, which is nice. That's convenient. But as promised, I thought we'd maybe as a backdrop get this Kim Potter trial.
Yeah. Let's see what's going on in the Kim Potter trial.
Just see how this crosses, because again, this is a fascinating game of chess. There's only one way really to defend this lady. And,
build up her character.
And, oh shit, they on a break, boy. We gonna rewind. You better believe we'll rewind. Let's get to the beginning of this, because I missed the whole day of it. And they start off.
It was just like a beginning like of a boyfriend and girlfriend relationship.
And you said it was the beginning of a boyfriend-girlfriend relationship. Had you just gotten to know him or meet him recently?
Yeah.
I don't mean to minimize anything,
When
but
I
I
say
love her
recently,
glasses.
that was shortly before April 11th of this year?
Yes.
About how long before that had you met him?
We've talked for about like 2-3 weeks.
This is the girlfriend of Dante, right?
So you were just beginning this relationship.
So you're having another hurdle the defense will have.
So you didn't have
is the
an
building
order
up of
for
Dante's character
protection or
while they
any
can't do
court
anything
order
to
against
react.
him, did you?
Yeah.
No.
So I'm interested to see how how the
meeting him and
cross
just getting to know
examinations
him,
go.
is that right?
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
So I'm going to direct your attention to April 11th of this year.
Well, I mean, to me,
alright?
the only
I'm gonna
way
ask
out
you
is
some
to say
questions
that it
about
was
that day.
a legitimate accident based on
Had
conditioning.
Dante Wright stayed at
and
your
by
place,
conditioning, I mean like
the night
she had been
before.
conditioned on that gun for 20 years, but had not had a
And at some
comparable level
point
of physical
on April
training
11th, did you
on
go
the taser.
with him
And it
to
was
his
like
parents' house?
Yes, I did.
like smacking the
Did you
clutch
wait
pedal
in the
when
car
you
when he
meant
went
to hit a
inside?
brake, because
Yes,
most of the
I
time
did.
you're used to driving an
And
automatic.
was there anyone else in
Yeah.
the car with you at that
Yeah,
time?
like
No, there was
to
not.
That's how I genuinely
what car
like
was it
I,
that
that's
you were
that's
in
my
with
suspicion
them?
from what
It
I've
was
seen
a
that
white
happened.
car.
Yeah, and that's how I
Not
feel the
familiar
charges
with,
kind of read.
car brands
Yeah.
or names.
You know what I mean? Is
And I'm
like
not
Was it
saying that
Dante's
that's
car?
not
It was
not a
Dante's car.
negligent homicide.
yeah.
And then
Yeah,
after
exactly.
You waited
Like
in
it's
the car,
exactly.
Did
Yeah.
you leave with him?
Or actually, I would
in
say
that car
I
from
wouldn't
his
say
parents'
that's not a
house?
negligent
Yes.
manslaughter. I don't know
Who
if
was
they'd be able
driving?
to get them on negligent
Dante was
homicide,
driving.
or exactly how
Where
their
were you
particular
sitting?
charges read
I
from
was
state
in
to
the
state on
passenger
their
seat.
state definitions of
that's the
manslaughter
front
versus like
passenger
second
seat.
Yeah,
degree. or
Jameson
negligent
kind of
homicide.
explained
At
how
some point while you were driving,
they explain
in that white
manslaughter
car
and like the
with
difference
Dante Wright, did you get pulled
therein.
over by the
You have like okay, so I guess you have to prove
why you were?
the like with manslaughter, you have to prove the action,
Reasons like
even if it was unintentional. Like even the tasering would have caused enough bodily harm to potentially kill that person.
Here,
Okay,
Dante Wright
okay, so that whatever they meant to do would have done it.
Yeah.
when
So if she can reasonably
yeah,
convince a
kind
jury
of,
or
I
judge
remember
that she
mostly
meant to
him
go for the
talking on
taser,
phone with his mom,
yeah,
and
that's
then
where
he
if
decided to hang up.
viewing everything and also knowing what I know about firearms training
where
and martial training in general,
the
yeah,
officer
she didn't have
who
nearly
pulled
as
you
much
over
time and in that
stepped
type
away
of
from
real world panic
white car that you were
situation.
in.
Like I said, knowing what she'd
And then
probably seen
the
on her
officers
screen
come
in the
back at
car.
some point.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, man,
Now, in
her
that car that you were
instinct
in,
that had
this
been put into
white
her was probably to grab the gun.
Was there a gun
Yeah.
in that car?
Even
or
if
any
she
weapon
meant
of
to
any
get the
kind?
taser, because her hands are operating differently than her mind or legs.
Yep.
Yes.
And again, for the
Which is something
majority-
that nobody wants to admit to, because that's a terrifying concept that we have
So there was
police
no
out
weapon
there
in that
doing
car.
that.
No, there was not.
Well, and you know, this
You
is
know, if
what
Dante
kind of spurred a
had
whole
gun or a
meditation
weapon
on,
his body or
you
care
know,
what
how
was
how
carrying a gun that
females have this extra hurdle sometimes, particularly in a workforce filled with men, in presenting authority.
Right.
And for her, for the majority of 3 decades, presenting authority to her is attached to a physical motion of a straight right draw at the hip. And so in a gut, fight or flight reaction,
Like they would ask him to step out.
I kind of understand that it was a straight right draw.
The-
So I couldn't tell.
The
Like,
easy
you know.
fix, and this is a training thing. The easy fix to ensure this can't happen like this in the future.
Yeah.
Right. Is, you have what they call like not offhand, but like dominant hand, right? Like most people when they shoot a handgun or a rifle, they grip it with their dominant hand and shoot with their dominant eye, right?
Yes.
So the gun should probably go on your dominant hand.
Yes.
And the taser should have to be carried on the other side of the body and drawn with your offhand.
Yes.
Right? Operated. You should train to learn to do that, because the super short range that tasers work at, there's no reason they can't learn to utilize them effectively with the other hand.
Yes.
So that they know automatically that when they yell taser, that they go for the other hand. Like if they mix that up, that is totally on them at that point. There's no, well, I was trained, but I draw, I carry the taser cross draw because I'm right-handed. Well, it doesn't matter. Learn to use it left-handed.
They break this down in the opening statements from the prosecution yesterday too, and prove that from the moment she got the taser on, she always kept it left straight draw.
Yeah.
Which is, to be the.
Now I'm going to tell you right now, if that's the case,
which is.
Then that's where I, as the prosecution, would definitely go for. You would intentionally put it on the other hand.
It's a big angle they said they're going to focus on.
It's your responsibility then to do that. It's because in this point you're negligent in the same way as if you'd run over somebody because you slammed on the gas when you meant to slam on the brake.
Yeah. Jameson just came in the chat and said they got it right on Duggar #1. What up, Jameson?
Good, Jameson. I agree.
Fuck yeah, they did. Finally, that family needs to be fucking. Even if there wasn't that going on, there's something weird going on with that family. I guarantee there's something weird going on. I'm from their area.
Yeah, no.
I'm from their area.
Look, guys, I've got a weird perspective and lens on all that sort of stuff. They're real culty of a particular type of charismatic Christendom that plays very heavily in the South. My grandmother was a follower of that type of for her it was even more intense because it was Pentecostal, but it was.
Turns out half the population of the people who are from that place have some weird bloodline of weird culty shit.
I think if you really want to understand it, right, who you need to understand is Marjoe Gortner. Marjoe Gortner was an actor in the 70s, but he pivoted because he got an Academy Award for his first film, which was a documentary about evangelists. Cause at 4 years old, his parents made him an evangelist, and he was like this. He was a pretty well-known star. He was a tent evangelist. You got me?
Okay.
He's like a tie between those two worlds. It's part of this John Huston mega conspiracy in Hollywood I'm working on.
Yeah.
But to understand
that's such a
the type of showmanship.
Drop, though. Hold on.
Well, I was going to say the type of showmanship involved in like tent revivals, and how people in the South especially heavily reacted to that level of showmanship being presented, like if Liberace came and gave a fucking fire and brimstone sermon. You've got to understand, and said all of exactly the stuff to hype up a group of people.
Yeah.
And it was a big, like, circus show.
Yeah.
Not to mention that their candor and just like the flow of their speech kind of triggers that hypnotic state that you often refer to.
It absolutely does, and that, I've got to document it in one place where they talk about how the level of hypnosis that they do is the same thing that's achieved by a revival preacher. And it really does. If you want to understand how that level of hypnosis really works in the South, study tent revivalists. That's a prime example of the inducement of mass hysteria, functionally, or mass hypnosis on a crowd.
Yeah.
It's the same thing rock stars do. Don't think for a moment we don't. In fact, I'd say the rise of Marjoe Gortner becoming part of the Hollywood establishment coincides real suddenly with the rise of arena rock.
There's a reason why they talk different on stage than they do in person.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, if a person sort of wants to understand this, Louis Theroux did a documentary on stage hypnotists. I can't remember the name of the documentary, but you can find it off his wiki, or I'll bring it to the map at some point. and he deals with David Silver, who's one of these classic big stage hypnotist guys, and he's an excellent man. Before he lost his hair, he looked like a CIA agent, was like a stereotype of a CIA agent. He always wore for forever black shades.
Damn.
And yeah, he looked like he just stepped out of the background of an episode of Archer. And he's one of these. He uses what I call blasting people.
He's Umbrella Man.
Well, no, man. He's, like I said, closer to Archer in sunglasses if he was skinnier, right?
Fucking.
And he uses a technique that I call blasting people. Yeah. Right, and I get the sunglasses. It goes back to gigantic eyes. It's the same reason people are obsessed with anime in a weird way.
Yeah. Oh, I do it to this audience all the time.
But blasting is a real form of social domination, where you know that they're doing something.
Yeah.
Right, but you just can't not be entranced. They understand exactly how to skillfully manipulate modern social interaction in a way that even though they're just basically just pummeling you, you still react. And he was for a long time just the foremost, most capable person I'd ever seen of that sort of thing. And he's more of an 80s guy.
Yeah.
But he never stopped. He stayed busy in Vegas the whole time. And yeah, back about 10 years ago, 15 years ago, something like that, Louis Theroux did a documentary. He does a lot of good investigative journalism. That's fucking. I love Louis, man. Somebody once said he was just the nicest snake. He's just so calm and nice and waiting for exactly the right moment to stick the knife in on camera. And it really is that way, man. He just like gets people like really into their confidence right until he's got them built up enough to just straight ask them a very problematic question for them.
Yeah. Loosens them up. Gets them loose-lipped. Sinks their shit, baby. Damn. He spent 7 years in jail. Hold up. Let's check on Jameson here.
Yeah.
Sorry, I missed a bit of this. I dealt primarily with sex crimes. He was downloading 3-month-old babies. There's age differences on this where it's BS to charge, but this guy is a serious danger to the public.
Yeah, and I agree with that statement too, man. Like, there's some people where it's like, okay, well, I will give you as a human being who prefers to err on the side of extending the benefit of the doubt that you got caught up in really bad sexuality and you were downloading some stuff that was definitely illegal, but surely I could not even remotely put on that same scale.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like just to be fair, like, I'm not saying you don't prosecute it. I'm just saying, like, come on, like, that guy is obviously a danger if he's looking for that.
Gotta be a problem. He also goes on to talk about Potter. Heard it coming in. The premise about the location of the taser versus the gun isn't that powerful for the prosecution, in my opinion, but that's why we have trials in America.
I don't think it's that powerful. I think it might be the only thing they may have if they don't watch out.
Well, they laid out a roadmap in their opening statements. It's one of many things they're going to be breaking down in front of the jury.
Yeah.
Is the location, her, the things they're not doing, it seems, are going to be breaking down her character.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it seems like they're not character assassinating on either side, which is strange. It's almost like they have... I haven't heard the judge say anything about allowing or disallowing that. No. So this must just be them reading a room, which, good on them. Again, I want that to be a thing that people are used to. Or we're just going to have a bunch of people with, no social aptitude, forcing a room to bend to their.
That's what it feels like. Our culture is rapidly starting to become.
Yeah, and so you have the juggling act that both of them have to play. But I will say, they laid out an arsenal, in my opinion, on the prosecution side. They're breaking down a lot of different things, and they're starting here clean with building up Dante's character, talking about who he was, talking to the family, putting this emotional stuff in the jury. So it feels like, again, each thing, if you pick it apart, Jameson, might seem like it's a low ball play or a bottom of the barrel play from the playbook, but when you stack them together,
I think, the thing to keep in mind, and the reason that people are going to be so up in arms, and it isn't generally spoken, is like the government has a monopoly on the legitimate use of force. The police are the apparatus with which they utilize that expression of force. And when force is misapplied by one of the police as a mistake that results in death, it's going to perk up everybody's ears. Like, even even if legally that person can be proven to have made a mistake, but not have been of a mindset that we may wish to punish them as a murderer.
Yeah.
You got me?
Yeah.
And that's something that I think we as a society have a lot of issue with. It's really hard for me to ever have sympathy for the police because of all of the abuse. I also still try and look at individuals as individuals and place myself in their position. Yeah, you're not likely to see me as a cop.
Yeah.
But, I'm glad until we come up with something better, I'm glad we have people who want to be cops, and they are human beings, and they will sometimes mortally fuck up. And while there should be consequences, depending on the situation, they shouldn't always be treated as a murderer. And that's also, as Jameson said, why we have trials, to figure out what happened and how they should be treated.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and leave it up to peers sometimes, which again is a centerpiece in our great American experiment. It's a very crucial part of what we got going on.
Man, the definition of peer has changed with the advent of the internet.
Yeah.
That's sort of why when I get basically done with the tattered map, my new show is going to be how they used the internet and emerging computer networks to change us all.
Fuck. Fucking A.
Because that's a big part of it. Like, Jameson doesn't like televised trials. I don't have a problem so much with televised trials, but when you mix them with social media, it does seem like a recipe for disaster.
Yeah.
A
lot in America does. I think that's why it's still considered an experiment.
It seems to me that the appropriate way to deal with that is to record the trial and release the trial after the trial's concluded.
Yeah, freedom in itself, freedom of speech, and these are paradoxical.
Hey, could you give me a glass
concepts.
of water?
Oh, absolutely. These are paradoxical concepts. These are.
Oh yeah, well, freedom of speech ends when it causes immediate deadly panic, right?
Yeah, there's things you can say, but it can only go,
Which is why I said earlier with what I'm saying. I'm not trying to create a moral panic. Like, the things I'm talking about are fucked up and reprehensible, and we need to talk about them. But I'm not trying to create some sort of mob. But if we don't, then it ends up like in Belgium in '96 when 500,000 people took to the streets.
Yeah. It does.
Ooh.
Televangelists.
Oh, televangelists.
We get Jameson riled up. Molly, go lightly. We got Aunt Molly. She sometimes is the first person there with a pitchfork and torch, and
Well, and part of the problem is, look,
that's a very free individual.
Okay, here's what the conspiracy theorists will call problem, reaction, solution, or the Hegelian dialectic.
Yeah.
But what they've done is, I'm not saying Molly Go Lightly is part of the conspiracy. It's not. It doesn't work that way. There's 7 billion people on Earth. 1 billion of them have internet access, and hundreds upon hundreds of millions have phones. Right? With that amount of people, you're going to have folks who figure that they can get famous by doing that sort of thing. And they will, because they're trying to make money like everybody else.
Yeah.
They're an entertainer, and this has become a legitimized avenue of entertainment, right?
Yeah.
So Trump makes it functionally with the Music Modernization Act under that particular regime, where anybody can start getting paid off YouTube functionally. You don't have to wait till $500, and you don't have to worry about Harry Fox agency robbing you.
Yeah.
What's the solution to all of these horrible things that are happening as a result of it? Right? Well, the other side's like, hey, we need to get rid of all that and make sure that people can't communicate. It's like they're trying to put video recorders back in the box.
Yeah.
It's like you can't. It's Pandora's box. It's already open. It
happened. It happened.
Right? We need to learn how to manage it.
Yeah.
Does that? You see, that's part of it. See, she's got it on the right.
She's
or on the left
yeah.
to cross draw. She's still drawing with the same hand. They need to learn to draw with the other hand. First off, you should never reach across your body for a weapon if you can help it. That gives somebody the option to pin your arm to your body.
In Minnesota, you have the option, and they break that down in the prosecution's opening statement, and they show how she had a couple fellow officers who were cross-drawed. They also broke down the differences.
Yeah, that dude's not, though. He's got it right.
They also broke down the dramatic difference in holster.
Right.
This one, you have to engage a safety clip, rock it back, pull it out, it's bright yellow.
Yeah.
It has a digital readout, a scope, and 2 laser lights.
Yeah. Yeah, and with the lasers to help with aiming, like offhand aiming, to where you don't have to do it like a normal gun. Yep. Look, guys, I've got enough experience just shooting with a laser. It doesn't replace good technique by any means.
Well,
but at that range,
this thing
with the
with
the two prongs, right? Like at that range, it's as good as using the sights.
Yeah.
Like it's definitely as good as using the sights if you consider the possible ramifications of not doing so.
Yeah, it's also half the weight of a Glock 9mm loaded with hollow points.
Things like that, I don't expect people to like the weight thing.
Yeah.
Like everything else, the weight.
Split decision might not rationalize that.
Yeah, in the moment, like you might recognize that the weight is like on some level your brain's like something's wrong, but you're in the moment and not trying to doubt yourself.
They break down every day of training she violated with the way not only she pulled the Glock, but the way that if you were to imagine she would have pulled the taser.
Yeah.
The ways in which she violated protocol.
Yeah, see, that to me speaks to negligence once again. Like we've got the protocol for a reason.
So this is where these negligent firearm charges are
well,
coming
part
from.
of this is that like we have in our police apparatus nationwide a concept that the most important thing for an officer is to get home alive every night. Yeah. Look, for a human being, it is. You have decided to become part of the apparatus that imposes force on people, right? Yes, you have your survival instinct, obviously. We're asking for people who can remain cool enough under pressure that they don't end up in a panic situation like that. Yeah. And if you do, it seems that we should hold you responsible to some level at least. Let's see, Jameson says, special guest, my theory of the case is that George Floyd trial actively taking place made officers walk on eggshells, and this led to her having a massive error of basic process. Now, understanding people, I think that that's probably absolutely accurate, especially considering that they were hemorrhaging officers left and right. And it's like if you want to understand how they're thinking,
I think it's one of that is a very valid theory on one of many hurdles I think she was facing in that moment.
I'm going to tell you right now, if you want to know how they felt, not how they were thinking, I can't say that, but how they felt. What I suspect is that if you want to know how they feel, you should watch RoboCop.
Yeah.
Like honestly, I think that's how they feel, and I think that part of it has to do with a sense of the public having no faith in them, justified or not. Right, we're talking about how they feel as human beings, and also a sense of being in what amounts to a combat zone too. Yeah. And that's going to cause these people, and like they're not trained special forces; they're people that we hired that could make it through the police academy.
There's, absolutely, and there's this. I think one of the hurdle I can't get over, and kind of spurred a whole couple of days now of like meditative kind of thought on is the presentation of authority.
Yeah.
That is a hurdle she had to face there socially. She's in a workplace full of men. Presenting authority to her is a right-hand draw for the last 20 something years.
And I think that's really, really hard to explain to people who don't engage in the physicality of weapons use, much less who are involved in things that are as legitimately dangerous as being a police officer can be. Yeah. Yes, I'm well aware of the statistics of far more statistically dangerous jobs.
Yeah.
In terms of what people are dealing with in the mental context, it's wholly different. There's working on an oil rig or a crab fishing boat. And then there's having to deal with the cleverness of human beings as your stock in trade.
Yeah, and presenting yourself as an authority, like outside of children, you might have to earn that socially.
Well, and I think that it does speak to a huge amount of issues with how our institution of the police works and is implemented and what we expect of them. Yeah. I think that a lot of that stuff needs to be compartmentalized. Like I said, traffic cops probably shouldn't be armed with guns, but we also don't need to be chasing people down. And when I say that, it's correlated with the idea that we normalize the idea that the traffic cop can't shoot you. Yeah. Like there's not much of a reason for a felon who's on the run to shoot a traffic cop before he runs away versus just peeling out when he knows that cop is not allowed to and doesn't have the capability to shoot him.
Yeah.
right? From just a game theory perspective, there will be people that get shot in that case. I'm not saying don't give them vests. Yeah. I'm not saying don't give them tasers or pepper spray or batons.
Yeah,
just not guns. Like
not
maybe.
I love this idea of
like maybe I will say like maybe a shotgun in the trunk as a concession in case of emergency, but it's something they gotta go and get, and they're not allowed to get out of the car with it. You got me. And then in general, we need armed response units who are the people who are very capable and competent with a gun. I'm not against rubber bullets, but it needs to be, I think, a little different than the type of rubber bullets we currently have, right? And I think when you say rubber bullets, people think about the types that have been used in the past, especially in England, and those are designed to be shot into the ground, ricochet off the ground, losing some of their energy and strike people in the legs, and were generally misused. You need a lower energy, lower density, or I don't want to say lower density, but it's got to be an appropriate mix between low density and low energy. If you're going to get into that, because people view them as not lethal versus less lethal, and you would need somebody who's very much trained to center mass people, and with a gun that is inherently less accurate.
There's something that I felt like could have helped avoid a situation like this. That is a very small thing you could enforce at any county level to the police on the ground, right? Mm-hmm. And there's just an observation I made when they showed her belt. And that's that she had a very comfortable and worn-in holster for her gun, brand new shiny plastic one for the taser.
Yeah.
Now maybe make people change things up. Take that that fits like a glove, comfortable, worn-in feeling away from that. And I realize you increase the danger and reaction time, but maybe we could, in a small way, avoid situations like this where, that's right, that's my new gun hold. I got to use the plastic one. You know, there's little that's like one's. Like,
I'm not against exploring that. I immediately have feelings of pushback against it that I can't articulate.
Well, people will gun people because you're taking away the comfortable shoe.
Well, it's, to me, the part of the comfortable shoe is like what we're calling the comfortable shoe is if you do need to use it, I don't have a problem with you being efficient. Yeah. I think that, like I said, a lot of this goes back to the like they have so many other options.
Yeah,
like the training on that. I'm thinking more about this rubber bullets idea, and I said a shotgun in the trunk. Honestly, like I don't think it'd be a bad plan to give them a sawed-off double barrel on the hip and a shotgun in the trunk, and they're all loaded with beanbag rounds. Ask any felon you've ever met who's worried about a skip tracer if they really want that damn beanbag round.
Let's give the cops party poppers like New Year's. They're just like, stop in the name of the law.
You know, and here's one of the reasons that I do want to say this, right? I believe we are only going to see more violence and more gun violence, partially because another thing you can't put in the box is 3D printers.
Yeah.
And guys, if somebody's going to break the law on that, you can get everything you need from the hardware store and a couple spools of 3D printer wire, and you're good to go. That and a file. I promise you, that's all it takes.
Nah, they got Uzbeki kids on the internet making them shits out of dirt, dude. You can make gun out of nothing.
Well, I think as we've become more extremist and politicized, you're likely to see more of that out there, especially in urban hotspots.
Yeah.
And you know, they do need to be capable of dealing with that, but there's a different methodology, like I said, both with armed response units and less lethal options for them.
Yeah, that would be
Debbie says shoot him in the leg, they won't get far. It's a much harder shot to make.
Yeah.
Like it's very, very hard to shoot somebody in the leg.
It's two moving targets with several points of articulation.
Well, if you miss, you can hit somebody else. Like it's very important if you do deploy it that you shoot them in the middle of their body for everyone else's sake. You've already decided it's worth risking their life to stop them.
Leg shots I'm comfortable with. A leg sweep because I've made you dodge what you thought was going to be a right hook. Like I'll fucking do the fake out. Go hit it right. Sweep them legs, jump on that ass like I'm a pit bull, dude. Yeah, so like leg strikes are dangerous, and I mean they're just hard to pull off.
Well, Jameson says there's a shit ton of arteries in the leg, and that's also true. If you hit that femoral artery, it's like cutting the bottom out of a styrofoam cup.
Yeah, they just drop.
You better have a tourniquet on scene and hope that it does anything.
Yeah. Now if you can get a strike on a leg, that's normally the devastating blow in any kind of like no weapons involved fight. But even just striking at a leg can be daunting.
If the bullet's going to stop in you. You want it to hit you in the guts. I mean, you don't. Trust me, you don't. It will definitely be a life-altering event. But if it's going to stop in you, that's probably where you want it to hit you in the guts and not hit your spine. That's going to give you the most chance of surviving, the most chance of them patching you up.
At your house.
Yeah.
That before April 11th, correct?
See, this is the defense is bringing. The defense sounds like he's got a COPD, but kind of like that Biden COPD, where Biden sounds like he's inflated by assistants before he speaks. Like they crack his mouth open like a Pez dispenser. They blow into it. And then he's just like, the deficit and corn pop.
There's an air compressor that runs up to the mask. And so it's filling him up right before he takes the mask off before he speaks.
Sometimes they drop a Lunesta in it. They just keep him running that way. Football player Sean Taylor died by a leg shot. Yeah.
Plaxico Burress killed his career by a leg shot.
Yeah, a lot of people. Yeah, leg shots can be dangerous as shit.
The funniest thing to me, I'll never forget that coverage, man, because like all the Republicans at the time were like, "How dare you bring a gun into a club?" Blah 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 blah. And all Jon Stewart had to say is, "So you shot yourself in the leg because you had a gun jammed in your sweatpants. Think maybe next time." Jeans?
Long trench coat? Sick duster?
Security?
Security?
You're Plaxico Burress. You can afford some dude to carry the shooter.
You don't need to,
and to catch the charge on it. Like, come on.
You should have a whole system to pass that shit through security.
Yeah, you need a whole squad of big dudes in your entourage.
Yeah, why is that on your booty cheeks like that? That's weird.
No, he caught himself in the thigh.
Oh, he had it in his...
not a good thing for a running back.
It's so stupid. It's like dog fighting when you're an NFL superstar.
I want that hacked Pokemon. Michael Vick's dog trainer.
Michael Vick's dog trainer. Oh, God, that's right. I forgot somebody made a bootleg Pokemon. Oh, man. The ROM game is crazy, man. A special guest tells me all the time about some of the newer games that come out on old-ass platforms.
Dude, like, I watched a wrap-up earlier of 25 best games that came out for the Commodore 64 this year. I'm pretty sure the Commodore 64 might be the most developed for system right now.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that comes out for it. And it's kind of open source, too, a lot of the development tools. So you have a lot of people who are college age into game development that are using that to flex and exercise.
Oh, dude, you can get this thing called CBM Studio that'll run on any Windows box, and it's like it does it all.
Oh, it's
like like you can program into it in a few different languages, and it'll compile for you into machine language. Or it's got a monitor and machine language monitor if you want to code your own machine language. It's got a sprite editor. It's got everything.
Damn.
It's got everything. So yeah, it's such an like no other retro computing platform has anything comparable.
Yeah.
Like, so it doesn't surprise me.
Yeah. Sean brings up that it feels like the cops are always aiming for the chest.
Could you tell whether or not the marijuana?
Well, that's what they're taught to.
Yeah.
Like like I said,
actually,
Sean,
hold on. The prosecution broke it in their opening argument from the PD's handbook how they're not told to shoot at the chest, particularly at the proximity she was at.
Well,
yeah.
What is their PD telling to do?
I had never wanted you on the show more in a moment in my life than when she was running through like the actual.
Say again?
Oh, that was the taser rule. Yeah. That was for sure with the taser.
Yeah, with the taser, they don't want to hit you in the chest. They don't want you to aim at the chest because they don't want a dart to fly into your face and disfigure you or risk a cross the heart shot.
Maybe I am conflating the taser rules.
But I have to say, like Norton, the reason why it's not to always kill shot, man. It's because
That's the easiest chunk of mass to hit.
Well, let me explain, like, the ethics of the situation. It is, in that moment, they are viewed as a danger to the public in general, and maybe the officer in specific. Such a danger that may result in death to the public. This is the mindset behind it. And that they have to be stopped in that moment. And that if you're employing deadly force, the only responsible way to utilize a firearm is to aim for the largest part of them to ensure that the bullet stops in them versus misses and hits a bystander. So they're trained to aim for the biggest part because it's the easiest to hit.
Yeah,
like
and stay.
Stay.
Hit and stay.
You know, it's like target. Like I said, like the best place to get hit is is right below your solar plexus. If they hit you in the solar plexus, you're not going to be able to breathe. If they hit you north of the solar plexus, it's bad. It's likely a lung shot. If they get you through and through on the lung, that's not really that bad. Otherwise, you'd prefer it in your fucking guts, right? Barring like a flesh wound.
Yeah.
But yeah, shooting, you know, like now when they shoot a ton of times, you end up with a situation like, okay, you want to talk about a bad use of force, is here in Tucson just the other day where a cop got fired, and apparently all that's going to happen is that he gets fired because this guy in a wheelchair apparently had a fucking knife, and from behind, the cop shoots him 8 times in the back.
Yeah.
And then pauses and then shoots him once in the skull. Yeah. You don't give him a coup de grace. It's not. That's not your job. Your job is to stop them, not to kill them. If they happen to die, that is exigent to the circumstances.
Yeah.
Oh, and, Jameson says we have a verdict in the Smollet case.
Yes. I meant to cover that.
I didn't know that we had a verdict.
I meant to cover that. We do. It dropped an hour before we started streaming. Before we move on from this topic, though, Jameson says the handbook doesn't always reflect the training, though, in the real world. Let me tell you right now, that's why the prosecution said in their juicy-ass opening statement that they're bringing in the person that trained her from 2016 to shortly before this incident happened.
Yeah, well, you know, here's the thing. Why the fuck does their real-world training not reflect what is the procedure? That's a failing to my mind right there. If that's the case, that is definitely a failing of the police apparatus because they're not properly and consistently instructing their officers. So now their officers are having to pick between mutually exclusive information.
Yeah. And Debbie also brings up this case, it wasn't a valid stop. Yeah, I think that the whole premise of the whole reason it's the traffic stop happened was bullshit.
It is, but I want to say there, like Jameson can correct me, but I believe there was a Supreme Court case a few years back that functionally said even if, say, the stop isn't valid, the evidence collected can be.
Yeah.
And I wonder how that will apply to this. That it's like, well, the stop might not have been valid, but once she recognized who he was, at that point it became valid.
It affected the whole premise of how they charged her because they're not bringing that up at all. That's the premise of why they stopped isn't at all. You know what I mean? Like they brought it up once during the prosecution's opening statement and quickly moved on. I think they caught one objection over it.
Yeah.
So it is actually playing a big. It is the whole. It's one of the big defining factors in this case, in my opinion.
Gotcha.
Is just like they're not breaking down character, they're only building up characters.
Right.
They're also what we're talking about. They're. It's the hurdles in this one. I wouldn't want to take this case. It'd be such a fucking nightmare, But yeah, Jussie Smollett, Jussie Smollett, the French actor from France.
Live with your mother after you're 12 years old?
Verdict. Let's watch right now.
Thanks so much for that. Doug. Going over a lot of Matt Finn's live tweeting of inside the court as the prosecution presented their closing arguments.
Jury deliberations were happening. I'm going to let this run for a second. We're going to
6 or 7 different
Burnham,
ways how they think Smollett lied on the stand, picking apart his story, going through line by line what Smollett had testified to, accusing Smollett of being untruthful on the stand under oath as well.
any trial lawyer is going to tell you that if you assume for the sake of
Are they going to cut this old cat off because the verdict comes in halfway through his spiel, you think?
That would be funny.
It's my favorite shit on the news sometimes.
I'm seeing on this that
in the conference room.
it's
And the
in,
standard
but they're not saying what it is.
Is to painstakingly and carefully just take them through it.
Yeah, they're giving us a
You
full
had
recap on what
specific
happened here.
X's and O's, and then you had general principles. So let me just explain and break it down. The
He's
specifics are,
walking around, looking French.
I got hungry at 2 a.m.
Look-
right? That's all happens
From
to
France.
all of us, but we don't
He's not a man, it's not
necessarily
American
go
crime.
out, particularly if it's 10 degrees below zero, whatever the exact temperature was, I don't recall, but it was freezing by all accounts. And he says, I went out to Subway. Most people grab something in their refrigerator.
Damn, Sean's
or their
cooking
cabinet.
hella meat.
That's a big point, believe it or not, to a jury. Next, the whole thing with the noose. It was very staged and contrived. The police could tell that. Apparently, he moved it throughout the travels. Then this point about not giving over the phone. If you were indeed victimized by a hate crime, and the police said, can we look through your phone to help solve this? You'd be amenable to that. So in a courtroom, and I'm smiling real quick, it's, ladies and gentlemen, if you tell the police you went to the movies last night and it's true, well, guess what? The person who sells the popcorn will say, yep, I saw him. The person who does the tickets, oh yeah, he was here. No matter how much scrutiny is put on it, it's going to hold up. But when it's not true, it breaks down really quickly like a house of cards. So to your question, and you're right, Dan Webb, who's, got a very, very impressive career. He was United States Attorney in Chicago. But the point is, he apparently took prison.
The betting is cold in Chicago, yeah.
But the point is that he got Smollett, upset, fidgeting, annoyed, angry. I wasn't in the room.
Yeah, it sounds like they were really getting Smollett fucking cornered at times emotionally and visibly.
Oh, yeah.
Once you start getting the guy,
The French do that.
The
The French get upset like that.
At one point, he said,
they
well, you
wild
have to
out
ask somebody who's
Trading
committed a
places,
big
I gotta piss
crime.
you.
That tells you a lot. believe it or not.
He grabs it. Chicago gets cold.
Then there
Yeah.
was a really, really ill-advised move, which is when you talk about the racial
Utah
epithet
versus
in
Streif.
Newark,
I believe that's the
professor
case, but I'm going to
at
defer
Oxford
to you,
in the
Jameson.
1930s, this particular word was used, and it was horrible. So Jussie Smollett had used that word a couple of times. Side seminar about the different races using the word and so on, but put that to the side. Although a Harvard law professor wrote a book about it, but
Hey,
my point
Utah
is
would
that
fucking win some
Dan
cookie
Webb
traffic
simply
shit.
reads one of the texts. and Smollett
Yo,
plays
Utah's
the
got
race
the
card.
worst traffic police game since we started this channel.
Ugh.
They were the shitty police that let the Brian Laundrie leave
Jurors,
good old
again,
boy style.
Trust me, I've been in front of juries for 36 years. They're going to be saying,
Oklahoma.
wait a minute. You was
Oklahoma's
saying
rough
that.
too.
There's
I've
that.
got-
I don't want to make this racial. I have nothing to do with that.
There's a weird
Oklahoma's rough
story
too.
involving the OKC bombing
So the point I'm
and
trying
a
to
guy
make
named
is that Justin Millett
Strasberg,
made a
Oh.
series
who was
of
the son
mistakes.
of a German
But they were
defense
in a
minister who was
catch-22.
associated
So you
with him,
understand this.
and the first deployment of the elite GSG 9 German special forces. Since they had them, the first deployment outside of the country of Germany was to get him back to Germany, right? He got pulled over in Roland, Oklahoma, right outside of Arkansas.
Oh shit!
Just to cement the
And word came down from the top to let him go. Then he disappears off the map, shows up a few months later in Germany.
Damn.
It's a crazy story. So now my money's on Oklahoma.
Damn. It's just that Oklahoma's so fucking nuts, Jameson. The court ruled that evidence is admissible if there is a discovery of a valid arrest warrant between the events of an unlawful stop and discovery of evidence. So that's why specifically this isn't being brought up in Dante's, because he did have that warrant for that FTA.
Yeah.
Which shout out, look, I know there might be somebody, we got 10 people in right now. Look, I know one of you has had an FTA.
which I'm being positive, not negative.
You didn't show up to court.
When you say the two of them, the two brothers.
You might have forgot, got stoned, slept in, woke up in a pizza box, didn't make it to court.
The point is corroboration,
I'm not talking about what you were going to court for. Let's say, I don't know, I've seen people
Traffic stop.
I've seen people catch the same kind of FTA heat on a warrant that's like ranging. Like, remember when I got caught in Washington County?
Yeah.
I didn't have an FTA, but I had a failure to pay fines. And it's kind of like that.
Yeah.
Like they'll round you up. If you're out of county in particular, they have to.
Yeah.
And they'll treat you like a flight risk if you missed something. So yeah, he did have an FTA. So that's also,
Say that they're lying.
Yeah,
Say they had a
that's straight up. I've had my sister catch an FTA like a cold, like it's seasonal.
No, that's one of my big fears is that at some point when I was traveling, I missed I didn't get a traffic ticket that was sent out by a camera.
Yeah,
because I'm so bad about not keeping a home address that's consistent, and that I've got a warrant in some state that I have no clue about. There's no way to look it up.
Yeah,
like that's the thing. People should be able to look up to see if they even have a warrant.
Exactly. Like that's
Like I'd do a 50-state search and start calling some police departments, being like, "Hey, I'm not even remotely near there, but can we work something out? I didn't even know." But
you got to know the specific county and sometimes the issued number for your warrant.
Oh, dude, I've got a
But I can
friend
show you some
who will
resources to
never
find
ever
it.
be able to fucking drive again because he got a ticket he didn't pay in Alabama. They suspended his license in Mississippi. And Mississippi's like, you got to get Alabama to release it. And Alabama's like, we don't have record of that.
Yeah.
And that's a big part of the trial too.
The man.
Remember something.
Catching an FTA. Also just being impoverished enough to have to rob and shit like that. That's something that's just, in this case in particular, something I feel for. Like in the Dante Wright case, I mean, it's just something kind of like Ahmaud Arbery. Like he was just a musician walking around getting ideas in his head. How many times have you wandered into a construction site just working on shit in your head?
When I was younger, yeah.
About his age, though?
Well, no, I would say not when I was about his age. Like, I'm being honest here. But I don't know. I come from a place where people are real fucking serious about trespassing, my man.
Yeah, he might get shot at anyway. Yeah.
Like, I need to be clear. I come from a different cultural context where, to me, it's immediately like, and no blaming here, like not at all. But it's one of those where, oh, you don't go. Like you don't go onto other people's stuff. Like here's where I would make a distinction. That said, is it like a big being developed housing development that's being put in place by a gigantic construction crew? Yeah, sure. I've wandered through a ton of those because I was aware of the context, and once again, this is not murder victim blaming. I'm not trying to at all. Like I'm not saying that dude was up to anything other than he was wandering around, had some beats in his head, and he certainly didn't deserve to be shot over that shit.
Look, there's been situations where. Now, let me just explain it black and white. There was next to the haunted hospice house that I lived in as a teenager that I've talked about on the stream before. There was a house being built, and I probably had Justin in there partying with me one time. Justin's a good cat, though. He don't really, but I don't think we were probably hanging out in there like that. But I've had crazy parties in there, people puking, there's people shit in the closets. And again, that's just somebody else's shit. It was just a house that was being built, and we wrecked it. I threw ragers in there like at least 3 times.
Absolutely.
Like at least 3 times. So I've, there's times where it's like, fuck, I feel for that. Where it's like,
I would say that too. There was a different cultural context when you were growing up. That wasn't one where people were being so violent as in the streets, and a general sense of cultural tension. Not excusing anything, just trying to explain what's going on and why people are overreacting to the point of murder.
Here's the real culprit as to why I didn't get caught: the housing crisis. That place was basically abandoned 3 different times in the process of them building it. That's why I was partying in it. It's because they just gave up. Like I watched the construction workers just drop their shit and go home multiple times. Where they're like, there's been a couple times I woke up in there and there were workers trying to work on it and they kicked me out.
Yeah, there's been plenty of times I've just been out around walking, listening to music with nothing else to do, and yeah, certainly like in those cases, I'm cutting through a construction site solely so I don't have to go around that corner.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I get it to a degree. I feel like in my situation it was different. I had a different set of priorities. I don't know what was going on in that guy's head. And I'm totally willing to give him the benefit of the doubt, especially since he can't really say anything.
Yeah.
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 And I just don't see how anybody could could honestly try and defend shooting that guy. You had him outnumbered 3-1, and you were armed.
Well, yeah. See, that's the biggest thing.
Did he get up on you and did he bum rush you and try and take your gun? That's different.
Yeah.
But that's not what happened or what anybody said happened.
Man, where the fuck? 3 hours ago. Let's see if I'm trying to get the straight juicy verdict. See if we
Jurors
can't
will begin
get
their second day of deliberations into whether actor Jussie Smollet lied to police about being the victim of a hate crime. The jurors deliberating for 2 hours Wednesday after a week-long trial. Two brothers testified that Smollet orchestrated the 2019 attack to get publicity, while Smollet himself testified there was no hoax, there was no.
Now, is he a real Frenchman or one of those French Canadians?
Again, all of these men reportedly friends. We're joined right now by New York
one of those
attorney and legal analyst
poutine
Angela
filled
Sindela.
croissants.
So this trial,
yes.
Let's just be real for a
It's
second.
Montreal.
A lot of people watching
He acts like he's kind of
this seems very
got that kind of shit going on.
So, in your legal mind, who has a stronger case, the prosecution or the defense?
So even though the defense had this dazzling celebrity testify, I think the prosecution has a
dazzling
much
celebrity
case just based on
testimony.
the evidence. It's pretty clear here that this was not a
yeah, like in the Fatty Arbuckle case, right? They had a dazzling fucking celebrity,
so
Fatty
Arbuckle. It's the prosecution.
Okay. So with that in mind, what is the most important
why did
piece
you
of
even
evidence
frame it
for
that
the
way?
prosecution?
The corpse of Harry Carey.
To me, it was the testimony of the police chief who started that they spent 3,000 hours going through this entire case, going through all the evidence and discovering that it wasn't actually the brothers who were at fault here.
I've spent 3,000 hours on conspiracies that didn't pan out.
Even if Jussie Smollet was
2,000 hours ain't shit.
Do you know how many notebooks I had to burn?
So what kind of sentence does Smollet face?
2,000 hours? Psh.
Well, he could face a few years.
Hold my 1980s Rolodex. Citing books I've got to recite.
Most likely is facing just probation.
Thank you so much
My
for watching. Make sure to click on the red subscribe button below so you can get more of News Nation's fact-driven, unbiased
So we're
coverage.
still waiting for everybody to actually report on the fucking verdict? That's lame.
Yeah, they've reached one, but they're not telling what it is. It's a secret.
It's a secret
secret verdict.
Secret French metric verdict. They're like, he's G83, and we're like, what the fuck does that mean? They're like, convert it, and I'm like, I don't know how.
Well, then you don't need to know the verdict.
The fuck are you talking about? I'm American. I don't do metric shit.
I maintain that this is CBD we're dealing with. This is a hill with Smollet that I'm willing to die on. Hey, no, dude. Look, Jameson, you will find me on a different. I think that we tend to find ourselves on the same place. And also, I would certainly prefer for you to be my lawyer than me to ever have to defend anyone in any context. I want to be really clear about that. And you're not wrong. Like with CPD, like you might as well have said LAPD. Right? It's like, oh, well, I just don't believe anything that they're saying per se. What I will say is that that what we've seen of the evidence certainly seems to paint a very, very strong circumstantial picture that's very, very hard to get around. And could that evidence have been framed that way by the CPD? Absolutely, man.
Chicago PD sucks.
But the testimony in the case is fucking wild.
Dude, and come on. Let's get barbershop with it, Jameson. Like, come on. This dude's story of, dude, you out at 2 a.m. trying to get a Subway sandwich? What
in -14?
I don't know how they teach sandwich etiquette in France, but you don't go doing that Southside Chicago at 2 a.m. Whatever part of Chicago he was in, maybe he was in the nicer
everything
side.
Around, and the reason it feels
I think he was on the South Side. He didn't get jumped.
And I'm talking feelings. I'm talking feelings. Okay, the reason I feel that this is so suspicious in light of everything else.
Suspicious as hell.
It's
an onion of suspiciousness.
It's the most ridiculous set of symbols to be seen. Yeah. It's a not acid attack that is an acid attack. And it's there's the symbolism of the noose in there. People are just walking around looking for somebody to throw a noose on. It's so over the top and theatrical in certain aspects that it feels like an orchestrated media event one way or another.
They cut
and I want to say that in that I even leave the leeway that Smollett was set up by other people surrounding him, maybe. Like, if you want to give him an out within that particular, very judgmental and based on my feelings viewpoint.
Look, things like this happen when you're surrounded by yes men. You shoot some crazy shit out there, and the army of yes men do what they're paid to do. They say, yes, man.
They made Dave Chappelle's office disappear to make him crazy.
That's true.
Right?
That's true.
Like that's a classic sort of magician's type of manipulation that also, when working with a crowd, is designed to manipulate your artist into acting how you want. So maybe they were manipulating Smollett. Like, I know I'm going wildly conspiratorial here, but in an attempt to say even there's room for exoneration of what happened with this guy, considering the bizarreness of the circumstances and how they read, just viewing the facts as presented that are undeniable, that everybody's just admitted to.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And once again, not saying CPD didn't set him up. No reason to trust him. You know, but
no reason to trust it. No. There's, in South Side's a wreck. Like, I get it. CPD sucks. Like, Chicago.
Lori Lightfoot is not helping that town.
No, nothing can help that town. Not the South Side of it. The South Side doesn't even want help at this point. They're like, no, let us do our thing. Fuck off. Like, it's crazy. So sure, CPD, but dude, again, barbershop, water cooler at the bar. Yeah. Come on, man. He didn't. Nobody, not at that time of day, not at that temperature. Again, I forget what it is Celsius, which is probably how Jussie remembers it. But it was something like -2 degrees fucking Fahrenheit.
Yeah, it was well below freezing.
Like
in the Windy City.
Yeah, ain't no one going out for us. Fuck you. This dude crawling with assistants and yes men didn't make someone go get a sandwich for him. I felt like the walk in 2-degree weather. Bullshit.
Well, and also the whole video of them basically casing the place the day before, nominally looking for a place to work out, but then deciding not to. Maybe that happened. There's a whole lot of that would explain that to a degree, but all of these things correlated together are also the behaviors a person would engage in if looking to set up a PR event like this.
He's got an onion of suspiciousness.
It's just
an onion.
It's a lot to buy.
Layers of suspiciousness behind this story that I don't think anybody believed would have happened. It was like, no, I don't know, man. Really? That happened to him? You know? It is not far-fetched to state that the closeted man who had sex with Smollett would attack him in a hate crime, and CPD would craft a case against a gay person of color to avoid being embarrassed
for taking so long to solve the crime. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, Jameson, you're not wrong. And I think that considering that the CPD has a history of doing that sort of thing in the 70s specifically through their Red Squad against gay people and famous gay people, I believe that is not an unreasonable thing to be suspicious of considering their history. But I'm sure you're aware that would be an astoundingly hard case to prove.
A hard case to prove, and only kind of peels back a couple layers on the onion of suspiciousness.
But here's what I do want to say. I'm not even remotely trying to dissuade you from that or to act like, well, but it's just particularly like I do a show that's based on conspiracy theory.
Yeah. I'm down. I like Jameson's angle on it. Yeah, no, I like Jameson's angle on it. Because it kind of centers around Chicago PD.
Sometimes the highly unlikely explanation seems to be the correct explanation. Yeah. Like sometimes things don't make a very linear, straightforward sense. And considering the actors involved, I could totally see conservative elements of the CPD wanting to try and take down an actor associated with a big show. And keep in mind, Chicago is the last bastion, really, of old school film that didn't die out. Hollywood's sort of on its way out right now.
I thought
the East Coast has died and is being reborn, but Chicago kept trucking the whole time.
I thought I read an expose forever ago, too, just to kind of bring up something Jameson's saying that Juicie's side piece was listed as bisexual on everything, dating apps included. Yeah. So he was openly looking at men, too. So I don't know Like I heard he was closeted when the thing first popped off, but I don't think that's been a thing. Didn't that get dropped out of the case kind of thing? Because they proved like through his social media, like, nah, dude, you've been on Grindr for 8 years. What do you mean closeted?
Jameson says, I mean, let's be real. It's the Cochran defense. Fairly unlikely, but it could have worked. Dude, I think that going after the CPD would have been a lot smarter than what the defense did.
What did they end up fucking actually doing? Just trying to
explain away every weird inconsistency.
They're like, no, all this sus stuff is
like look at it. Sweep under the rug. To my mind, it's sort of like one of the situations where you know you're so fucked that you just plead no contest.
I keep up with music news, particularly hip hop news, and let me tell you right now, Jussie. Not a lot of people bring this up, but he had a record that was fucking tanking when this happened, and he had a serious PR push. Empire had dropped numbers, like their ratings had dropped like a motherfucker. I stopped watching Empire well before he left the show, and before it was, I think it's over now, but he had PR, like he was about to be, owing his label money.
He's an artist, and going back to what I said earlier,
he had no street cred too.
Like
by the way.
I keep putting it off, but one day here soon, like the Maxwell trial made me push up some of this stuff that we're doing now, so that it would be sort of relevant. But I had been about to do how Jimi Hendrix's manager and Sharon Osbourne's father, who was Don Arden, were both very, very heavily into controlling, fleecing, remaking their artists. And when I say controlling them, I mean like they worked Jimi Hendrix like a dog.
Yeah.
He barely got anything out of it because of the way they paid it, and all his money disappeared afterward, right?
Yep.
And they weren't like there's a heavy suspicion that because of the way things were tanking and moving, that Hendrix's manager killed him for the sales, and his manager's estate owned all of that stuff.
Yeah,
you got me.
Yeah.
So even though he probably faked his death in an air crash,
and his Morgan Freeman,
well, he worked for MI6, right? So considering the era, I think that MI6 faked a lot of deaths by crashing planes.
Or car wrecks, Paul McCartney. Sorry.
Well, I think that there was a lot of cases where for them it was a synergistic part of their strategy.
Covered up a car wreck death. Sorry, I don't know.
They would they'd get rid of somebody, fake a death on a plane, but also utilize the plane crash or as a potential terror attack.
Oh,
you got me, and say, we've got to obscurity.
Oh, that makes sense.
But anyway, so his estate had, up until I think 2018, had control over all of that Jimi Hendrix material, which is why you constantly saw unreleased Hendrix stuff put out.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And so they'll control and even murder sometimes artists, or tell them they have to do this or that because they're used to a certain lifestyle, and they're actually in an astounding amount of debt because of the way their contract was worked out.
I think that explains a lot of the mystified deaths of like the early rock and roll era. Those deaths where it's like they wake up motherfuckers suffocating on his vomit in a car.
Yeah, well,
and the estate has nothing. It's all owned by the managers.
It was
all signed off.
There was so much wide in Jimi Hendrix, apparently.
Or your managers try to keep you in a position where you never procreate or want to stash stuff for the future. They want to keep you in that give it all to us mentality. I've seen that go down. If you look at the long-term run of a rock star's career, like their priority is not their family or keeping something secure like Zappa's mentality. It's the opposite.
No.
It's the opposite. It's take the deal, take the quick gratification, and they stay in that feedback loop of fucking because the manager's controlling.
They've never had that level of money or that level of opulence.
Yeah. And it's provided by one person, that manager. So
well, in the way of Hendrix, like the way it worked is that there was an offshore company that was set up as a tax shelter.
Yeah.
And Hendrix was basically an employee of the company, and the company Yameta owned basically all the copyrights and everything, and he was supposed to deliver 2 albums and 4 singles a year.
Damn.
So every time that he doesn't, he's owing money and owing stuff. Like he owes them basically because he hasn't met his contractual obligations because they're too busy touring him all the time to get money in hand right now.
Good Lord.
Like, dude, apparently, like, some of those concerts were pulling $100,000 a night for a week at a go.
That tracks, too.
And that's in, like, 1970 money.
He was selling out big-ass fucking venues. Big-ass venues, particularly in the UK. Said before, most defense lawyers aren't willing to fall on the sword for their clients. They enjoy the life of an attorney. They want the perks of being in the club.
Look, man, it's no different to my mind than doctors or any other high-status, high-stakes specialist field like that. Like, probably a fifth of them are functional sociopaths.
Yeah.
You know, that's not to smear lawyers. I'm talking about entire class. Like, look, when we talk about sociopathy, right? Yeah. Like we immediately try and class it as being wholly negative, and I don't think that is as helpful as it should be. It's a big indicator of significant problems.
Yeah.
And the example I always talk about is you want a bit of that because that's what leads to clinical detachment. Like sociopathy is just the inability to understand how to compartmentalize that detachment to the appropriate context.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So you want a brain surgeon who is a child brain surgeon, a pediatric brain surgeon, emotionally capable of doing 200 brain operations in a row and then fucking up one, like in a way that's not really malpractice. It just didn't work out.
Yeah.
You got me? And still being able to clock in later that day to do another one. That's important for culture and society. Like, do you want to learn to do brain surgery and be responsible for that? No, we need specialists for that who are willing to dedicate their lives to it. And part of the responsibility of all that, and this even goes back to our police officers, is sort of a level of clinical detachment.
Yeah.
And that's just the implication of these jobs because of the amounts of control that they put over people's lives, whether it's a doctor who could give you a cyanide pill telling you it wasn't cyanide, you'd take it and die because you trust him, or your lawyer who you trust to keep you from going to jail when you fucked up or didn't even realize you'd fucked up,
yeah,
or are falsely accused,
yeah,
you know, or the police officer who's not supposed to be shooting people just because they're fucking scared and couldn't remember their training.
Yeah. Damn. They're social implications.
Yeah, and it's a really, really hard pill to swallow that these things are associated with when they're in their, I don't want to say wholly uncontrolled form, but not appropriately socially compartmentalized for where it needs to be and only where it needs to be. When it's not in that form, become profound dangers. Like, I think they said 1 in 5 CEOs amounts to a sociopath. Well, in the world of business where everything's a bet and most everything is based on acting like you're an authority and inspiring confidence in investors, you're going to have a lot of sociopaths who do great at that.
Yeah.
And, you know, if those businesses are vital to your nation's survival, that might not be the worst thing. But it becomes a problem when your intelligence apparatuses hide half their shit within certain corporations staffed by sociopaths that sort of crypto-identify as fascists.
Yeah.
Like that being an example of how it spins out of control. It's an astoundingly delicate balance that I can't tell people how exactly to fucking understand or navigate, but just that we're here, there, already on the tightrope and better fucking figure it out.
Yeah. Yeah. Oof. Man. Hate to switch topics. You notice how fucking cold it's been getting?
Well, it's December.
Yeah. It's in the desert.
I mean, we got spoiled.
I miss 107 dry. Still hating it.
I'm still wondering what like February 1st is going to be like here.
Oh.
I'm guessing bitter when it's cold.
Really? Yeah, probably. Oh, definitely. It already is. Like when there's no sun up in the sky, it's just fucking. Hey, it's like living in the Earth's digestive tract.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Let's see here. Anything pop up? They're gonna actually drop this verdict or what? They're gonna do a whole special presentation or some shit? What is this?
Let's see.
Like they would ask him to step out the car, and
here's a quick summary of. We kind of chit-chatted through it, but here's a summary of
what he did. And
this
they
testimony.
kept telling him that they wouldn't tell him until he got out the car. So, like, eventually after him just kept asking why and, like, not. So then he stepped out the car.
Oh, damn. Straight Rich, now we got you on the list.
While this was going on?
I'm really nervous.
Verify
and
that
scared.
address. Get that out, baby.
I really have a good past with police, so every time I encounter, I just get nervous.
And then you said you didn't remember much of the scuffling. What do you remember happening next?
I just remember hearing just the boom, the bang of the gun, and then I remember just looking up and seeing another white car just coming directly towards us. I remember lifting up my head real quick and just boom, and I was trying to push on his chest and call his name, and he wasn't answering me. He was just gasping, just take breaths of air.
Hi everyone, George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you
I do find it interesting too, Jameson. They are showing the wake of destruction left in Kim Potter's actions, adding yet another kind of interesting hurdle in front of the jury. The things this judge is kind of the way this is set up is so interesting to me.
Well, the court of public opinion is rapidly changing what takes place in courtrooms, and I'm with Jameson. I don't think that that's necessarily appropriate. I'm not saying that I don't think that the "how are you feeling" wasn't appropriate. I think within the context of a televised trial in the era of social media, that seems more like it's designed to manipulate the public as much as it is designed to influence the jury's emotional state.
Well, it seems, in my opinion, just the other side of the coin of tearing down someone's character. It's the same shit. As why is it okay, but the other? You know what I mean? It's an interesting way to.
No, like I said, I don't have a problem with it being utilized as a strategy. I think that in the current explosive context, that once again, my solution is you record the whole trial. And then you put it out as dump it as soon as the verdict's read.
Oh, word! You wait till
you don't let it become a public spectacle in the moment.
Yeah.
You allow people to dissect it though immediately once it's done, because we do have that capability, and I think that is fair and reasonable in our current context. It doesn't in any way make it. Look, applying television to a courtroom setting is somewhat ridiculous, because in the past, even if it was a huge deal, you can only pack so many people in that courtroom.
Yeah, that's true.
And now you can pack the entire world in the courtroom.
Yeah.
And in the very moment, people who have no real concept whatsoever about how the justice system works, why it should or should not work that way.
It would be really interesting if it was a world where they released everything after it was, after the fact and edited, maybe, because you could have I don't know, you'll probably end up seeing really ritzy directors show up and with cranes and shit.
Oh well, my feeling is that we just put HD cameras in at lots of different angles, dump the raw video, and let people on YouTube edit it because it's free use.
Oh, production editors flexibility. Yeah, the man will never be cool with educating people like that.
Yeah,
through it. I wish.
Look, man, if we want to compete with Russia and China, we're going to have to start actually understanding we are competing.
Yeah.
Like Russia and China don't give two shits about participation trophies or feelings.
Yeah.
And they're the two big geopolitical blocks out there.
Something like that
it's not supposed to be a fight or struggle for one bloc to control the world, but when two sides are hell-bent on expansionism and one side in specific has an ideology that's bent on world domination explicitly.
Yeah.
What you're already in that. You're already in that competition, whether you want to be or not.
Yeah. Your feelings don't matter in it. When you it's the same thing with reading a room. It all kind of goes back to this same change in ideology where it's social aptitude at the end of the day matters a whole fucking lot in a lot of places.
Well, people get resentful because they either don't have personal access to that understanding of social aptitude and can't read those things.
Yeah.
Or even if they do, they don't understand how to utilize that information to communicate in a manner that expresses what they want to communicate and thus achieve the goals they want to achieve.
Yeah.
And they get real fucking resentful about it, man.
Yeah. Crafting, they want a world crafted for an outlying demographic because, again, it's a social issue, them even being able to conceptualize the fact that they're an outlying demographic in some instances. I think it's really hard.
Rich Buddy says, Josh Duggar, they only found a couple files on his computer. Is that all?
No,
I think they found
a lot.
They found a lot of files, and they found a few that were particularly egregious, including pouring wax onto a 3-year-old or 3-month-old.
3-month-old. And they also found evidence of him involved in like an illegal torrent situation where he was uploading and downloading. Like he was actively trading.
Yeah.
Like he was involved in a network.
He was part of a network.
Yeah. Yeah, he preyed on his sister. He sure did. Yeah. He's disgusting. I grew up down the road from the Duggars, and fuck that guy. Fuck Josh Duggar.
Look, all I'm saying, right, is it's very, very bizarre that across the last 10 years we've seen both this type of thing consistently happening, often with these Southern and evangelical churches or other church groups, religious organizations.
Yeah.
And this isn't just Christianity, but that's the dominant form, so that is what you will find the most of.
Yeah.
That seems to coincide with like damn near a network of just blackmail operations.
Yeah.
Is really, really how it fucking feels.
Yeah. It feels like like blackmail operations. Yeah. No, absolutely. Christy making the pukey face. Yeah. This wasn't a
close call.
Yeah, he had his own shed for this. Exactly. He had his own shed for this. This was something he had organized. He was planning. He was involved in a network. Like he was involved in a private server for this shit.
Yeah,
I think they said they had found a computer that had Tor on it.
Yeah,
and he had sourced things from like the deep web. So, like, this thing goes deep. He didn't just have some. He had everything digital that he had touched.
Well, he didn't trip and fall into it. But we're seeing all of that. Now, at the same time, like I said, I try and stay away from modern topics for the most part.
Yeah.
If you look into who owns all of the big porn companies, like the tube sites.
Yeah.
Most of them are owned by a company called, I think it's Deep Geek or Deep Mind, something like that. I'll have to look it up.
Something I remember hearing that. Yeah. What's up with that company?
Well, no, the bizarre thing is that the content has rapidly been shifting, basically since Game of Thrones, to feature an astounding amount of simulated incest.
Oh, yeah, it's something you can see.
It's as if it's something that's attempting to be sort of culturally normalized.
Yeah. I see this lady getting ready to bounce.
Yeah, I gotta run to the office real quick.
Oh, you look like you were trying to skate out of here without getting a smooch.
No, I was gonna actually tell you to keep an eye on that Jussie Smollet thing because I think he just showed up to the courthouse.
Oh, to receive the verdict. Yeah. Okay, good.
Because I think, you know how we were supposed to do this for Rittenhouse when they were supposed to give us an hour before they actually read the verdict?
Yeah.
I think they did that this time.
Oh, okay. Hey, JB's.
Because everybody else is still waiting on it from what I checked.
Yeah, JB's already on it. Oh, they got the press conference set up. Well, hey, we're not going anywhere for a minute then, it looks like.
Yep.
Hey!
Live with everybody on WFLN.
Oh, he's just walking by.
It's just a dude. It'd be weird if that was the guy to introduce them.
Meantime, let's get to some of the hashtag HeyJB questions and comments that are coming in at this hour. As we await that verdict being read aloud inside the Chicago courtroom, we can have a conversation.
The French actor Jussie Smollet should
sent back to France. He's from French Canada. He should be sent back to Canada.
He should be sent back to Montreal, Canada.
Product. Let's get to.
No, honestly, we need to investigate the CPD just in case.
Taylor in our YouTube audience.
He's back! Hold up! Someone's uncle's lost his shit.
Sorry.
I'm going to bring up my notes here. And Smollet, 39 years of age, is charged under Illinois.
I think it's Hemet, California.
Oh, these comments are just mean.
That's
the other thing.
Hey, we're very fortunate here at Merc Radio to have a very solid crew of people in the chat. JB gets it, dude. Like young Jeff Goldblum over here, he looks beleaguered for a reason.
Look, here's the thing, right? The only harm that happened here was to anybody's reputation.
Yeah.
Right? And I think that's super important to realize. Like, all these these people who are like, put him in a cell, and it's like, I don't even know if that's like appropriate.
The purview of Illinois law.
You know, like
6 counts of disorderly conduct.
find the guy if we find him guilty and move the fuck on.
Of course, goes back to what we were talking
You
about
know.
earlier.
Make him pay
The
a whole
charges
lot.
are
Everybody already does. His career's over. Like,
and
nobody serious
these
wants to
are
work with him right now.
classified
Nothing about this trial would even change that anyway.
Oh my goodness.
In my opinion.
Check it out.
But class 4
Check
in
it out.
Illinois, based on the notes that I have in front of me,
He
that's
comes
among
to
the
God.
least serious felonies.
Hold on.
He goes Kanye. Okay, keep going.
Convictions can range
Marries
from
Milo.
up to 3 years, I believe, per charge.
Oh, no, Milo's
We'll find out
straight
more about
now.
This in the aftermath, but
He
based on
converts Milo back. Hold on. Hold on.
time of up to 3 years.
Starts making movies with Gina
Sentencing, of
Carano
course,
for
would
Ben
happen
Shapiro.
likely at a later date. And because
Fuck, he starts some
nobody
kind
was
of strange,
seriously
bizarre
injured,
world Tyler
I've
Perry network.
fucking heard weirder stories.
somebody that does not have a
There's also a lot of
criminal
meetings with
history or
people
lengthy
like
criminal history,
scholars.
and,
The public has no clue how to properly use it. What are you talking about?
Smollett's representation. If
We could start by not referring to every little age gap as a pedophile, as pedophilia. It also allows people cover who belong to the sex offender list by clouding the seriousness of it.
Yeah, unfortunately, you got super sus people like the person, like the math person we came in, and that ruins that.
No, like I would ask you to look at the beginning of this feed when you get a chance, because once again, it's not that I don't disagree with you. We should use the appropriate word. And he made a point earlier about like, look, man, if it's like a 17-year-old and a 19-year-old, I just don't give a damn.
For Jussie Smollett.
Basically, morally, that's where I'm at. I'm a person who says laws are made out of arbitrary numbers. You know, and we have to enforce at some point. But it seems unreasonable to take a 19-year-old who consensually slept with a 17-year-old, put him on a sex offender list for life, etc., etc. Like in a case like that, the sex offender list is a big part of it because it does equate people like Josh Duggar with somebody who was with somebody when they were both below age and then continued their relationship.
Things like this are why we have the reason to amend.
Yeah.
As we know from the way things have changed in the past, age of consent, legal drinking age, these change in America. This is a fluid concept in other regards.
Yeah.
So it would.
Well, and once again, in cases like this is where I think that treating law as informed by context as opposed to like a fucking programming language, that's where it's very important to have judges and juries that look into context, you know? Because in the case that you posited, I don't give a shit either, man. That this does not seem particularly harmfully socially. They are so close together, right? But if you're talking about a 22-year-old and a 17-year-old, now that's a big difference in life experience between the two of them at that point. And I can totally see pursuing charges. Hell, I'm still not even sure if you should throw them on the sex offender list on that one, if everything's consensual. But that goes hand in hand with me saying we need to retool how the sex offender lists work.
There's a really good storyline for Debbie that kind of covers this in the UK version of Shameless.
A gay man in Chicago.
She falls in love with a police officer. And he's older, but she's like 15. Well, they gotta wait till she's 15 to say it.
Yeah, no.
Or like 16. They gotta wait till she's of a
well,
pretty young age.
Jameson says the age of consent in Canada is 16. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, guys, my personal feeling is that for appropriate human development, it seems as our culture and most Western cultures are set up, we need to just pick an age of majority and go with it. Right, none of this age of consent at 16. You can vote at 18, but you can't smoke a cigarette till you're 21. No, that all seems absolutely reversed to me, based on the social consequence. And I'm not saying that we need to push the age of consent to 21, but look, man, if they can, if the age of consent is 16, they should be able to vote and smoke at 16. Like, what's the age that you can do it all? That's the number. Pick. I don't have kids. I don't have a fight in this game.
But now that a verdict has been read.
Sorry, I gotta change this around just to reflect a little bit of what's going on.
Shortly, now that we have that, people filing out of work, it's 5:18 Central Time in Chicago. People perhaps just getting out of work.
I don't know if I spelled his name right.
Outside of the courthouse here momentarily.
I think that's right.
Or is it just not that type
Jussie
of case
Smollet.
where people care enough for there to be massive crowds of demonstrators? You tell me.
But yeah, James said the age of consent in Canada is at 16.
a large presence of demonstrators?
In Canada, yeah, I think it's 16 in England. Some places have staged age of consent. I have less of an issue with that. Yeah, you're talking about the 16, 17-year-olds must be close in age to the other person. I don't know how I feel about that staged concept, but I'm definitely willing to entertain it because it doesn't seem unreasonable. I'm not certain about the specifics of how I feel about that. Because, once again, and also there's, like if underage people are having intercourse with each other, man, once it's a case-by-case basis. Like, once it comes to light, is it a thing that needs to actually go to the court system, or can the parents actually handle it? This can be problematic. Look at the Duggars.
Yeah.
It's an astoundingly touchy subject when you get into even things like parental rights.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, let's prosecute 30-year-olds, but not 19-year-olds for being with 17-year-olds. Yeah, once again, I agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could even see a prosecution of a 25-year-old. I just... we need to change how that sex offender registry works because it's profoundly badly implemented. And the other thing is, I'm not a punishment person. I want to know what makes sex offenders tick so that we can keep that from happening in the future. I don't want to just punish them. I want to understand them. I want to understand anybody that has what I think any reasonable person would define as an antisocial tendency.
My sister gets wild. My sisters get wild sometimes and end up with older guys at a hella young age. And I give them the same advice I give anybody, because sometimes it's that age where it's like a 19-year-old hanging out with a 15-year-old, and I tell her, look, man, there ain't no like if a 19-year-old is hanging out with a 15-year-old, this isn't to take away that you're maybe wise beyond your years and hella cool, but he's hella not and has no friends.
Right.
Like, this isn't a person you want to hang out with at the end of the day anyway.
Okay.
Like, that's my personal opinion.
Jameson says, this is a serious difference between the two. I'll share this. I was 17 when I met my wife now, who was 20, and it was no big deal. I'll even give you a comparable. I was in my 30s when I met my wife, who was like 22. We didn't get married till later, but there's a 12-year age gap between us, right? We were both absolutely adults, though. Though I definitely had more, just when I say life experience, just time on Earth experience. But she was perfectly competent, capable, mature adult. You're starting to see a line of thought, especially coming from the left, that there's a power dynamic based on age intrinsically, and that you shouldn't ever romantically be involved with anyone who's not in your basic age cohort. Yeah. And I think that's profoundly damaging, right? For adults.
Yeah. Yeah, James says, I definitely knew what I was doing at state.
Well, and here's another thing, Jameson. I want to say that there are plenty of people who probably definitely knew what they were doing at 15, because different people are different people and mature at different rates, and parts of their personalities mature at different rates, right?
I'm even molecularly just a different person than I was.
We have to have laws. Yeah. As I know you agree, we have to have laws that have these because the lines have to be clear. And we don't have any way of measuring maturity. We have to pick an age where we all feel the average person should be mature enough to be held responsible for their actions.
Found guilty on 5 counts of disorderly conduct in Chicago.
He's found guilty, guys.
5 counts.
Reaction from outside the Chicago courthouse, where again the former Empire.
We got it from JB himself
guilty
live
in the hoax trial dating back to, of course, the hoax that we've been talking about since early 2019. Hey, everybody, JB Buno here with you live on WFLA Now, getting in the news that 5 counts, and excuse me, I misspoke a moment ago. It's 5 counts total found guilty of disorderly conduct in Illinois, in Chicago, moments ago. Now,
so he's been found guilty of disorderly conduct, not necessarily all 5 counts.
To come out of the courtroom. The jury is going to be let out first. And then, of course, everybody else will be let out of the courtroom, judge first.
Yeah, Christy, 16, too young to be a 26-year-old.
Coming outside of the courthouse to offer comments.
Again, a 26-year-old hanging out with a 16-year-old. He ain't got shit going on. He's gross. You don't want to be with him anyway.
Some of the shots that we have, but really, there
well, Jameson, the age of consent is below 18 in 39 of 50 states. In certain states in Mexico, the age of consent is 12, but I think we can all agree that that's not right.
Yeah.
Let us know. I'll read some of your comments aloud, provided that I can. If you use hashtag HeyJB, we can feature your comments.
Hashtag HeyJB. What it smell like today?
But I believe in putting in a federal age of consent or federal age of majority that covers all of that. I really do. I believe that's socially very important for us, that we need to figure that question out and not have it on a state-by-state basis for our culture in general.
Yeah.
Because it does lead to people who take girls across state lines for nefarious purposes. That's been a charge for forever.
16
is a starting point. From there, I think it's a debate between 16 to 18. Hard agree. Look, man, if they said 16 was the age of majority tomorrow, I'd be like, well, that's what y'all decided. And while it sort of squeaks me out a little bit, I can accept that. I think 17's a good one, right?
Yeah.
Fuck, man. Like, and this is going to be a weird one, but I think that in a way that starting at 16, you should almost be able to take the equivalent of a majority emancipation test if you want.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, well, you're declared an adult at this point.
Yeah.
You know, that way people who don't feel like they're capable yet can still have the protection of law up until they're 18, but also don't get to do things like sign contracts.
Yeah.
You know, and I think specifically of like those kids I've known who were particularly smart and advanced and clept out of all their classes and were advanced enough they were done with high school and went on to college at 16.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and I will say the corollary to that is half those kids
Guilty on 5 of the 6 charges.
definitely shouldn't have been considered adults.
Of course, Jussie Smollett.
They just
former
were good
Empire
academically.
actor.
Yeah.
Considered to be very popular on that series for those who watched the
I loved
series
Empire.
and now, of course,
Jussie had this song
being found guilty
on it on the soundtrack that I thought was pretty
the
great.
trial, of course, reaching this point, the verdict being read aloud.
Debbie says there was a
moments
shooting in
ago.
Mexico. Someone in a boat opened
The former
fire at
Empire
people
actor,
on shore.
accused of
Boat
orchestrating
crime.
and now
That-
convicted of
That
orchestrating
tracks
a
for
fake-
Mexico, man. Like, was it northeastern Mexico?
Is it a float-by shooting?
attack on himself and lying to Chicago police.
What do you call that?
about
Is that a
it.
speed?
Take
What do you
all
call
that
that?
long to deliberate, perhaps.
What is
as many
this?
as,
What
I
is
think,
this?
8 hours.
Water world crime.
Let's kind of just go over the
What in
case
the
first.
what in the water world? What in
Remember back
the
to
drinking your
2019.
own piss and having
It can
gills
be
is
difficult when
happening?
you're thinking pre-pandemic now. But
Mexico.
let's kind of go over.
In a Gulf area or some shit? Where the fuck is that?
I assume it's in the Gulf
for a total
area.
of roughly 8 hours across 2 days.
As I understand it, it's not really that
two
bad
brothers testified that
on the
Smollett
west side, like on the
recruited
Pacific side.
them to carry out this fake
But
attack
northeastern
near
Mexico
his
is
home in
terrifying
downtown
from everything
Chicago
I've
in
read.
January of 2019.
Maybe it's changed in the last couple
Now,
of years, but
according
I doubt
to the
it.
two
I doubt
brothers,
it.
They
I've
said
only heard about it getting
that
worse with the
Smollett
Santa Monica cult.
orchestrated
I'll never
the hoax
forgive you for what
and
you did to my friend
told
Eduardo.
him to put a noose around
Cartels.
his neck and rough
John
him up in
Nordtveit, the
view
guy
of a
behind Dissection,
surveillance
who
camera,
killed himself in
and that he said that he
2006.
wanted
Yeah.
video
After he got out of jail
that
for
hoax,
murder
the video
and tried to restart the
of that
band,
attack,
right?
that would, of course, later
He gets
prove to be
involved
a
with,
hoax.
well, he stays involved with an
Public
occult group he joined in
via
like
social
95 or 96 that was,
all in an attempt
it became the Temple of Black Light.
Oh shit, that sounds scary.
Testified that he was the victim,
And yeah,
trying to
he
flip
kills
the
himself
around,
next to a
so he did,
grimoire.
trying to flip
With a
around and say that he was the
grimoire
victim
only
of a
available
hate
in
crime,
Swedish
telling
and
jurors that
Norwegian,
there wasn't
right?
He
Is
called the brothers
basically
liars, quote unquote,
a
and he said
very
that the
European
$3,500
centricized
check that he wrote to
form
them
of the
was
Santa
actually
Muerte
for
cult.
Whoa,
Yeah,
he had
it's
crossed the line.
It's the same sort of veneration, man. It's Liber Falxifer, I think, is the name of the book.
That's
and I haven't been able to
crazy.
find a
The
translation
story
into
about the
English
attack being
yet.
staged to get money from Smollett, so an extortion, if you will.
Thought they shot from jet skis. I don't know if he's talking about Waterworld or Mexico. Both sound right. I could totally see some Mexican gangsters on jet skis with homemade Mac 10s that they 3D printed.
I thought for sure we'd hear about. I thought that statement was gonna like include Florida somehow. Like when he said like shot from a boat. I'm like they're Floridians, right?
No, what happened in Florida was probably a Florida man on a jet ski pulled up next to a yacht holding a gator and demanded everybody's wallets or he'd throw the gator on board. That sounds like Florida.
Family members, arm in arm.
Florida
Like they
headlines.
had a guy try and rob a convenience store with a gator there.
Florida headlines are like
throwing it through the window.
Jeez, I watched a TikTok yesterday of a dude just in Florida putting a full ass Cayman in a trash can and the neighborhood cheering like he was a hero.
I just want you to know, don't invade Florida.
Wow.
They got two things. Those Florida men that'll put a caiman in a trash can barehanded.
Oh, he was wearing socks and slides, by the way.
He will do jail time.
In socks and slides. And the descendants of all those anti-Castro Cubans. They're serious.
Like, dude basically had a cigarette hanging out of his mouth. Like... And he just like tips over a city trash can, the big plastic caddies.
Did he have more of a Turtle Man vibe or Tiger King vibe?
No, he had a straight up let's just say lifts weights on his front porch vibe. Had his do-rag on.
Gotcha.
Socks, slides, do-rags, gym shorts, and a tank top.
Yeah, it was like, oh, another caiman.
Someone's dad or uncle came in clutch with that alligator that day. Oh, man, but yeah, Florida gets crazy. Shout out Johnny Riptide, who's probably still swimming with them gators, baby. Fuck that.
Johnny Riptide. That's the name of every Florida man forever.
Johnny Riptide. But no, dude, like reading a headline out of Florida sometimes is like driving on ice. You're like, where is it going? You feel like you're overcorrecting in your mind.
You know, the weird thing is, and people don't really talk about this, is that Louisiana is basically like Florida, but with France all over it.
Yeah,
it's like you just painted like you painted Florida with fleur-de-lis
with some crazy Creole shit.
Yeah. And here's what I'm saying: Louisiana doesn't get enough credit for that. Like we talk about, Florida man wrestled a caiman. I believe it. I also believe that there was some dude in Louisiana doing the same thing that day with a gator.
French by way of the Caribbean, so just the strangest of flavors.
Depending, of course.
You know.
Oh yeah.
Like the strangest of flavors. They can fucking cook some duck.
Yeah. Don't know if you're about to eat boudin or if they're about to whip your ass with capoeira. Right? Like you just don't know.
I don't know. Is this a Santeria thing or is this a? Where am I? Is this a street parade?
Hey, look, I will say I have eaten. I am the type of person who eats a relatively boring diet most of the time, but when I'm not, I try and eat the best damn food I can find in the location I'm at to know what it's like. Yeah. And the best food I've had's all been in Louisiana.
This isn't going to touch anything in Louisiana. That is some of the best food on planet Earth, I'm convinced. But I got an Italian place to take you to.
Oh yeah,
down on 4th. It's fucking great. I found an Italian spot. No one needs to know about it. It's for us. But
all I know is that apparently there's an Ethiopian restaurant here somewhere, and I gotta try it. I've never had it. I've always heard it's delicious.
Your wife shared a hilarious ad for like a curry place that was doing like a Star Trek anniversary thing, but it was a Star Wars meme where
there's a liquor store here that's Star Trek somewhere that I gotta go and get photos of.
Oh yeah. Hey, there's a pretty dope arcade down the road we gotta check out at some point.
Oh yeah. Well, you know me
for the games.
From folks filing,
return some quarters back to the masters.
Rich buddy, can anyone toss me some ideas for last minute wife gifts? I want to get a couple of last minute items. Any ideas?
I'm divorced.
Where do you live, Rich? I'm always going to suggest a firearm.
We're about to find out who that is going to be when
Jameson, I think it's good your kids
very large contingency of court
not a safe place to drink instead of hiding it. Oh yeah,
Well, no, Jameson. I remember when I was really, really young in like 1988. I want to say my parents went up to visit some friends in Mankato, Minnesota, and Minnesota very much had a bar culture that allowed kids in. Right, you could be there because they all served food. Right, so it was like a pub culture, basically. And the kids would play darts and stuff like that. And yeah, people would drink beer and stuff. But it wasn't really that big of a deal. It was relatively normalized. There weren't these hard lines.
Yeah.
And that can definitely be a problem. But I think we're so totalitarian in our views of how to deal with everything, Look, man, drinking alcohol's been with us as long as the written word, as near as I can tell. People are gonna do it. Like, teach your kids how to deal with it reasonably, and also when people are alcoholics, seek that they get help.
Longer than the written word.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like thousands and thousands of years.
I am not much of a drinker. Wine, red, white, almost always gives me a headache. Beer almost always gives me a headache, makes me sleepy, and makes me have to piss constantly. You know, I'm not even much of a liquor drinker. I do like a good cheap bourbon intermittently, but yeah, and it's not a quality thing. I've worked at a liquor store. I've had friends who've managed a liquor store. I have tried plenty of good alcohol. I intermittently like a little bit of what I like, and that's about it, you know. But there's alcoholics in my family. I've known plenty of alcoholics, and you got to let them know and get them some help.
Yeah.
You know,
it's
and that's a lot different than somebody who knows how to drink moderately, wanting to provide a safe environment for their kids so that their kid doesn't go out. You know, that's not wine mom shit necessarily, even though wine moms do it.
Yeah. It's I never it sucks having. It sucks having an intervention done on you. Hi, my name is Jay. Jay, how's everybody? I'm an everything. But no, you know, as somebody, I ended up getting clean on my own. But there was a time where I had the entirety of a band sit me down.
Yeah,
and that's it sucks.
Now, I've had to tell some of my friends that they were fucking up before, and you know, it's like a 1 out of 2 that you're still going to have a friend after that. It sucks, but you know, I feel better for having to for at least knowing I let them know if nobody else did.
Yeah.
Engaging a new digital audience on WFLA.com, the WFLA app, Facebook Live.
They have an app now. He's saying fuck YouTube is too problematic.
Illinois. This feed is
like you don't even know Twitch. I've been in the trenches, JB. You don't know problematic audiences. I've been out here in Twitch dealing with what is it? BigFollows.com.
To make sure that
you won't leave me alone.
in the necessary position.
I don't want your BigFollows.com.
Smollet or attorneys, whoever it might be, go out one door versus the other. But we're back here with you live on WFLA now. You can see here.
Yeah, are we gonna get a press? Who's giving the press conference? State
from attorneys, friends, family, whomever is going to speak. You can see, of course, all the
homie's uncle. Where's the leather jacket uncle looking sharp today, dressed for court. He's gonna take that jacket off when he gets inside because he'll be in court for a long time. You can tell. Which again, respect the drip. It's winter, baby.
Being emptied. And
in Chicago, like he seemed lightly dressed to me.
Yeah,
all these fools seem lightly dressed.
Get some of the comments that have been coming in.
Like, I hope those cops are wearing like something underneath those slacks.
Bring up your comment. If we of course
word, Christy, yeah.
We only take the comments with that hashtag. Why do we do
word,
that?
Allie.
The reason being is that not everybody wants their comment on a news broadcast. So use the hashtag if you would like for us to feature your comment or your
That's
question.
an idea, Pendleton.
But if you don't want your name and your profile picture on a news live stream like this, just don't use the hashtag, and we'll of course let your comment continue to scroll up on your screen without us plucking it for the news. So
it's cool you grow hops, Christy. That's those. It smells so good.
Okay, so Lori Alexander is commenting in response to what I was talking about. Do celebrities get off easier than your average Joe or Jane?
Yeah. Yeah, they do.
Kind of
yeah, JB.
That's pretty much what we were.
You work for the news. Let's see what he says.
Out there on social media.
Let's see what Tucker says.
Profile person, a celebrity, and you are.
I want JB to have a Howard Beale moment here. Get mad as hell about celebrities not getting sentenced as hard as the average person. True or not, I just want to see him lose it. Comes back in like 2 weeks with his own J. Jonah Jameson News Network.
On conviction, perhaps a lesser sentence. Do you agree? Lori Alexander saying hashtag AJB. He will get community service. No time in jail.
Oh, I thought Special was looking for gift ideas for the wifey. Oh, no. Say, who was it in chat? I'm terrible with names, y'all. Don't get mad at me. That's why I keep notes for everything.
Of course, those laws are different here in Tampa.
And if you were asking me, I'm divorced with a very understanding girlfriend.
Felony or misdemeanor are different. Just our legal
so
let's see.
And they each have their oddities and
I got no suggestions.
I'm terrible at this. This is the worst thing for me. So, I'm horrible at it.
Of the belief that that he's
like
just community service and no time in jail. That brings us to
my favorite smell is fresh hops, but taking care of 600 plus vines is time. Yeah, I bet it's time consuming.
I would imagine water consumption becomes a whole thing you're mathing out.
What I have in my notes as well from Chicago, but at the same time, based on a lack of criminal history.
Yeah, it's hard, Rich. I got nothing. I don't.
Yeah, I've never seen any type of farming anything that's not hard.
That he does an extended
like those plants don't care how you feel.
And I think that even some legal animus.
Lux and I go out to dinner when we achieve cool shit.
How much time is this fool getting? I'd be really, really surprised to see him get anything. But if he did, maybe a month.
Yeah.
Right, which once again, I think of like if he did fake it, right? Let's take the verdict at face value. If he did fake it, no harm. There's only social harm here. There's no actual physical harm, man. Now finding him a double fuckload of money and maybe even fining him for the cost of the prosecution.
People starting to file
all of those things. Oh, you're talking about Josh Duggar. They found him guilty. I don't know how much time he's going to get, but I hope they put him under the fucking jail.
Yeah. Yeah, he's going to get a lot. He's going to be a double registered sex offender at this point.
Yeah, there's no need to register as a sex offender when you can't get out of jail.
Oh, Justin says he's looking at 20 years.
Is that 20 years an image? Nah, that seems ridiculous to me, being honest. Yeah. Like 20 years doesn't seem unreasonable. But like, I'll be very clear. I think that people like Josh Duggar are a danger. Prison's not going to help the world by putting him in it, but definitely a mental institution.
Proven habitual offender.
Yeah.
Proven habitual offender.
I want him separated from the world.
Yeah.
Right? And when I say that, because 20 years later doesn't mean that he's not going to come out being a habitual offender. 20 years of therapy might.
Yeah. That's a very good point. Yeah. Then we take the water out of the dugout. Anyone want to come? Oh, word. Damn. Water all those plants every day. Word. Do you believe in sentences being consecutive? I think it's unconstitutional. Do you? Ask Rich. 2 years in stress.
I'm not a fan of consecutive sentencing. Like the idea that we're going to give somebody a life sentence for what should be concurrent sentencing, to my mind, is ridiculous. Once again, I'm not a big punishment guy, as crazy as that sounds. I'm a big... when I say therapy guy, it is contingent on people who are dangerous still being removed from society. But I don't think an arbitrary number of time in a cage is anything that's going to fix them to make them a not danger once they serve it.
Yeah.
And the corollary to this, right, is that whatever places that we are putting them in can't turn into a Soviet-era psychushka where we start sentencing people for mental health issues functionally. That's a terrifying, slippery slope. I'm talking about people who are an outright danger to the community.
Yep.
And that's not holding the wrong opinions.
No. Worked for a craft brewery and distributor here in Denver. They specialize in sour beers and got lots of hops, yeast, etc. from local farmers. Smells funky and so good. Word, Allie. Yeah, man. Yeah, dude. Hops are that's a good smell.
That just came in.
I'm nobody to be trusted on matters of smell or taste. I like black licorice.
Speaking very loudly.
Yeah, you drop some old school flavors on you.
I like Old Man Candy. Tastes like whiskey and molasses.
For all the money.
You tracked with that audience too, coincidentally. The Old Man Candy.
And I want to read out
get a whole audience raising their raising their fists with black licorice.
Yeah, I mean, like I don't want to get sprayed by a skunk, but I'm not mad at the smell in any sense, So I'm not the person to be asking about it. If you're into very light, flowery smells, that smells like a chemical attack to me.
I got smell-related synesthetic things that happen a lot, so like things taste and smell like shit.
I'm not saying don't wear perfume. You do you. Yeah. Just don't get mad at me if I'm giving you 8 feet.
Yeah, I don't want anybody limiting their experience. I've known some people straight smell like human.
Oh, yeah, well, it's the same thing. Like, if you don't like the way I smell, I get it. I'm not trying to offend you. You should probably give me some space.
Exactly. Like, it falls under doesn't make sense at looking something that bothers you to me. Like, there's like a category I have. Like, well, don't look at it if it bothers me.
Yeah, don't invite Andy Dick if you didn't want to get groped.
Exactly.
Like, that's not victim blaming. You know who Andy Dick is.
I'm calling that dude to the party for one reason. it's wet as hell there.
Oh, Sean's got some Durban poison today. The first time I ever heard of the Durban strain was thanks to the band Bongzilla.
Oh, word. That's a good strain. You know, I forget what the hell it was I got. Something interesting, though. And it's bomb. Not what you got bomb right now, but looking sick.
Let's see.
What up, Area Anthony?
Alec Cattell says those are good too, special guest. Them's classic cocktails and spirit flavor smells. Yeah, no, like I just first off, I love sugar. Right, like to the point that it's very detrimental. I could just sit here and drink eggnog straight for 24 hours till I vomited.
Whether or not
like that's how much I love sugar. But I really enjoy.
My girlfriend calls me a
flavors.
hummingbird on a regular basis.
Same thing, dude. Like I'm probably gonna have to go back into keto because I've gotten sugar addicted to the point of probably having candida issues at this point, which is part of why my psoriasis is going nuts.
I won't lie, when I see eggnog, I think of you. Like it's that level of he loves eggnog. Like when I see eggnog, I think of special.
Once they started putting it out damn near year round and making like Easter nog and shit, I was like, oh no, I just got to stop. They're trying to kill me.
Yeah, yeah, like I have to. Alec Hat Dales. Wait, what's up?
Oh, Ari Anthony got her job.
Oh, hell yeah!
Excellent.
Woo! What up, Ari Anthony got the job? Hell yeah! Fucking congratulations! I knew you'd get that shit. Man, fuck yeah! Hell yes! I don't have the soundboard out, or I'd hit the dub horn. I got the intro cards, I got the ad breaks, I got everything else covered. I did not bring the soundboard today because I'll get it together.
Farragness the same way. Dude drinks gal. Yeah, man. No, it's nectar of the gods.
Derek is the same way. I was wondering who the fuck Farragness is. It's like Farragness.
It's like, was that a Ferengi?
Farragness.
Yeah, no, I can absolutely. Like, part of it is that you talk about early drinking. My family was my grandmother. Got divorced from my grandfather because he was such a profound alcoholic.
Yeah.
So alcohol wasn't something she really kept around the house or drank in front of people. But when Christmas came around, dude, she made the stiffest fucking eggnog, right? And I loved eggnog, and she would let me have a cup, but I could barely finish it. That shit was so hot.
Yeah. Dan, they're getting federal clearance on Ari Anthony. You got this shit.
Oh, you'll be fine.
Yeah. I have a feeling, Ari Anthony, we might be from a particular family branch, by the way, we got to talk about.
Oh, I've got a friend, right? Listen, Ari Anthony, you'll be fine. I have a friend who recently got hired on for an astoundingly high security position. I'm not going to give any information about where he works or anything like that, but it's the highest. He got the highest security clearance you can get as a federal contractor.
Lord.
Right? It's as high as it gets if you're not working like in the super upper echelon of the Pentagon. You got me?
Yeah.
And based on your opinion,
I don't want to say his wife made some problematic statements over the course of the last few years via social media.
the hashtag if you'd like.
But I'm saying she made some statements they were worried about and that I was worried about, and it worked out fine. No problems. Like, if you're not some sort of fucking actual legit extremist with a stockpile and a network, dude, they ain't worried about that shit. You're just a person. And by that I mean, like, you're an American citizen with your own opinions, and they're fine hiring you.
Yeah. Man, I'll tell you right now, Ari Anthony says, Derek said to tell special guests that Brahms eggnog is the best, but gives hella gas.
That is very true. I quite like their eggnog. It's not too rich for me, but it's right on the edge, man.
Word. You seem like the kind of cat that might be like, hey, throw a scoop of malt in that. Like, what?
Well, I stopped going to Sonic when Sonic stopped having malt powder.
I remember that.
I've been drinking chocolate malts since I was a kid.
You straight said no more.
Yeah, no, it's like, well, now that just tastes like sugar. There's no fullness to it. And I mean, like, y'all's chocolate has steadily gotten less chocolate to the point there's no fullness to it. So this just tastes like dark vanilla.
Never again popped out over malt powder.
It absolutely what else is there that I want from there that's worth their ridiculous prices, man?
courtroom here in Chicago.
I just get some ice cream and a Ninja blender and some malt powder and make one at the house.
I believe that this is.
I'm cheap like that though. I will add like Angel and I were. Angel right now is looking at food costs online, so we could start doing some bulk buys. And by online, I mean she's stealing recipes from all of the online food delivery suppliers, and then we're just gonna get the ingredients and make it.
Around this corner at any second, we're anticipating.
Because super cheap.
Attendees, many of whom we imagine will be.
Oh yeah. I know it's a court, but it looks like a hospital.
They got the house.
Charges.
Arianthi got the house.
Oh, you're doing military loans. So you're doing loans to people within the military, like personal loans to people in the military.
Oh damn. Damn. I think that's Hijack HelloFresh recipes. Yo,
yeah.
My baby mama has stacked a whole binder full of HelloFresh recipes. She played that game with me.
I think it's absolutely the modern equivalent when you see a little old lady in the bookstore who's got like some index cards and she's just she's not even snapping it with the phone because she's got a flip phone. She's writing it down on an index card that she sticks in her purse.
She's got the crypto decks at home. The crazy old 80s thing made of hard plastics, and you have to press 2 buttons and it opens and auto spins and shit. Takes 1 AA battery.
The height of technology.
The peak. This is where humanity hit its peak. Is the automated Rolodex.
Man, so they're just gonna keep the news right here instead of covering actual things that are going on, like the Maxwell trial.
Responses to one thing I said in particular.
Like I get that the verdict could happen at any moment, but come on, guys, be ready to cut back.
I know that they don't. We gotta go at some point to get ready for the tattered map during prime time.
Yeah. I guess we're gonna probably have to drop off here in about 5 minutes.
So we might bounce, but at least now we know he's guilty.
Yeah, well, he's been found guilty.
Yeah,
at least of disorderly conduct, if nothing else.
Well, they said of all those, like 4 of the, all 5 of the charges or whatever.
We're talking about.
Well, he initially said all 5, and then he said of the 5 charges he's been found guilty. So he corrected. He said I need to correct myself, basically.
Gotcha.
So no. At this point, the only one we can be sure of is the disorderly conduct.
I keep saying that his net worth.
JB comes in clutch with that.
Our commenter saying it's about.
Which look, man, if he I would say Jameson, I guess I'd have to answer.
But
if you're found guilty,
one part of the story because you might have made.
No, I'm gonna take. Before I even get that out, I'm gonna take that back. I feel like that might contravene his freedom of speech, which he's still, to my mind, totally guaranteed, regardless of all of this.
Yeah,
as a human right to allow him to be comfortable enough to express himself to grow. I'm gonna say that right now. Nobody should be compelled to make a statement about damage that they've done. I will say that if he is found guilty
even if he
of
has a net worth of 1.5 million,
having functionally conspired to do this,
we have no idea what that fine amount
would be, to my mind, in his best interest,
likely not going to
socially and for his career, to make a statement that he understands the potential social damage that he did within the current context of what's going on in our culture. For the purposes of personal gain, and that he understands that that's wrong, and he's sorry for how he might have affected the cultural narrative. I think if he did that, he'd go. I think if he did that, it would, like the people who are being so cruel in the comments of this news story. It'd be a lot harder for them to be so hardline because, for one, he's showing growth. He's taking responsibility.
I think that in the end, if he did the way you're talking about, he would end up getting what he wanted in the first place, which is just some more fucking record sales. Just someone to pay attention, some legitimacy. What I see when I saw this case initially was somebody doing a PR stunt because they wanted legitimacy from a street culture when... Man, he wasn't looking at the world.
Well, yeah, and that's the thing and I think that's a big problem with what we call street culture.
And now the world's looking at him. He has to look back.
It's so focused on being legitimized within the trappings of what we call street culture, but is really the focus the media puts on certain artistic output of the culture of the street.
Yeah.
That he's trying to get legitimacy within that for his career is how it feels. Like, once again, I wasn't in his head. I didn't know what's going on. We can only go by what we saw in terms of testimony and whether they or not they find him guilty. Should they find him guilty, it would probably be good for his career. If we're just being like Kissinger about it, you know?
Yeah.
And good for society to say, hey, I fucked up. Man, I'm sorry. I did wrong and I made it worse for everybody by making us all so much more, just even a sliver more polarized.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, maybe we could find some way to heal from that. It was the wrong way to go about it. I think we're all afraid of these things having happened, and that there were plenty of cases of shit sort of like that happening, and worse. Charleston, you know.
Yep.
You know, and that we can point to that. We don't, you know, like, there's no need to add another one. And, you know, what I think of is the, unfortunately, like, at least 3 or 4 cases that come to mind over the course of the last 15 years, and I'm sure I could find more if we hopped on newspapers.com or just on a search engine of Jewish folks in schools putting up swastikas that they put up so that they could plead that they were being persecuted.
Yeah.
Like, that helps nobody.
Yeah. Oh, we got it. We got a comment. Before we go out.
Ready?
Ready, mofo.
So, during my closing argument, I told the jury that I thought the evidence was overwhelming, that in fact Mr. Smollet had faked a hate crime and then lied to the police about it, and then compounded his crimes by lying to the jury during the course of this trial and insulting their intelligence. That's what I told the jury in my closing argument. With the resounding verdict we just received from this jury after 1 day of deliberations, in which they found Mr. Smollet guilty of virtually all charges of doing exactly what we said he did, of reporting a fake crime to the Chicago Police Department as a real crime. That verdict was a resounding message by the jury that, in fact, Mr. Smollet did exactly what we said he did. And what I think is important about this verdict is that a lot of you from Chicago know that it was a couple years ago when the court system came to me and wanted me to become special prosecutor because there was a feeling that things that had happened in the past, that there never was a public trial, and that this controversial events that occurred regarding Mr. Smollet and what he did to this city and what he did to the Chicago Police Department never had a chance to put it in front of a jury and let a jury decide, after hearing all the evidence, whether what Mr. Smollet was right or wrong, because it's very controversial. I agreed to do that because I felt it was also important for the Cook County judicial system.
I can't believe a man that old can suck his own dick that
Whether we won or
well.
lost the trial was not the issue.
Like, that's impressive. He was doing stretches before he came out.
Who do you think recommended the surgeon to Marilyn Manson?
All the evidence that comes out.
I'm missing a few ribs.
Social media may or may not be true, but the true facts, I thought, needed to come out, and we did it. And we became special prosecutors, and the rest is history.
Okay, so this is just going to be him buffing his own nuts.
Yeah, this is him buffing his own
well,
nuts.
let's go back to let's look in the comments here. I want to say let's talk about Ari Anthony and the Duggars and support back in Northwest Arkansas where we're from.
Yes.
So she says, want me to talk about Duggar for a second? Derek and I drove through Springdale, Fayetteville, Tinytown, and Lowell yesterday, which is a pretty large area.
Yeah.
Right? You're talking about probably those townships represent a good 150,000 people easily. Right? Mm-hmm. And I was absolutely disgusted by the amount of businesses and residential homes that have Jim Bob fucking signs in the yards, talking about Jim Duggar, supporting Jim Duggar. That means they all okayed those fucking signs to show support. Also, some people in a local Facebook group today were saying, you've never made a mistake, Miss Perfect. And he was set up because people can't stand something white Christian success. The amount of hometown support is awful.
Yeah.
I will say that
it wasn't a setup. They found that shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
I don't believe. Yeah, that's one. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Speaking to that in the mindset, that's one of the reasons that is a reason I was happy to move out of there. I did not enjoy that particular part of Southern culture that was still there.
Yeah.
And this is as someone who is from the South and does like the South and will sit here and defend a lot of things culturally about the South. When you talk about the ignorant level of religious support,
yeah.
I guess what I do want to say, and this isn't to ameliorate it, is I have been very surprised to find that is in many ways nationwide. Not as strong, I think, as we find it in the South because of the nature of religion in the South post-Civil War, especially.
Yeah.
But it is very much nationwide, which is why we're seeing shit like Nazi rallies.
Yeah.
Because it is in like Christian identity, and I don't mean your identity as a Christian. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the movement known as Christian identity, which is probably a bad name for it, and is related to a Christian separatist movement that is overwhelmingly based on a biblical form of racism.
Yeah.
Is heavily tied to it and has been building up in our culture since the 70s.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you've never made a mistake, Miss Perfect. That threw me. Sure, never traded CP though.
Exactly.
Yeah. Like that's not a mistake.
He is guilty of it. He did that.
Right.
He traded. Yeah. Exactly, man. Totally. Agreed.
So I guess one thing I want to say is that the negative effect I've seen of a more condensed religious culture on my friends in the South who are religious, but not that type of religious especially.
Yeah.
Is that it induces I don't know how to put this because I am trying to minimize, but not in... How do I put this? I'll put this very plainly. It induces a form of what's known as threat exaggeration, which is something that we as which our intelligence culture, and I'll get off this subject, I just want to say, has done specifically against all threats to get everybody amped up, and now has just become part of our culture, and our media culture also does. Facebook threat amplifies, right?
Yeah.
We're all on social media all the time, and for my friends in the South, especially my pagan friends, not to put too fine a point on it, it's causing them to become scared to a point of near radicalization that I am constantly am afraid will be taken advantage of in my friends.
Yeah.
And when I say this, and when I'm trying to minimize your fears on it, I'm not saying don't be aware. I'm not saying don't like what you saw is real and terrifying. Right.
Duggar was in particular part of a giant network.
That's associated covertly, I think, through a lot of religious groups.
A lot of
right. Yeah. So I'm not saying don't be aware of the threat. What I am saying is don't allow it to affect you in a way that you automatically view all of everyone, even remotely associated with them, with a sense of just a baseline immediate lens of disgust, because they are often wholly unaware of the subtlety, nuance, and vagaries of what's going on within their own organization, and it's tied to their personal identity and faith in a way that...
Are we talking about like Duggar?
No, I'm talking about these people who are automatically like, no, it's just because they don't want to support Christian people. Right. And here's my whole reason. Here's my whole like white Christian people.
Yeah.
My whole reason is we're in an era of rampant radicalization that I fear may lead to literal partisan fighting.
Yeah.
And I don't want any of you involved with that.
No.
This is all an emotional reaction about wanting to keep all of my people that I love safe.
Yeah.
And people who I barely even know, but I really identify with because we do share a common culture and have had to deal with understanding what's going on there. Because the threat is exaggerated by nature of the way we take in information.
Yeah.
And by nature of the echo chambers we do set up for ourselves, whether we mean to or not.
Yeah.
And the reason I don't want you to live in that level of fear is because that level of fear takes a toll on your body constantly and keeps you from being able to make the right decisions for yourself because you're in a consistent state of anxiety due to a perceived immediate threat of the hordes at the door.
Yeah.
Like, learn to be safe. I suggest I suggest you get means of self-defense and on equal terms of the people you're afraid of. But if that's not morally acceptable to you, I understand.
Yeah.
Learn to be safe and plan, but just don't spend all the time. Like, be proactive, and that proactiveness is not picking fights. Yeah. Not saying that's what you were doing at all, but don't fall into that trap. And if you're worried, then start taking steps to feel more secure.
I think we should go out on that sentiment and get ready for the tattered map. You know, it's again, it's that sentiment that's been kind of stuck in my head is I choose not to harm, but it's typically because of my own means of protecting myself. I feel like I have the option to do the other thing, which is harm.
Well, and people become afraid when they feel that in the moment that they will be ineffectual and thus harmless, when they must do harm. And even if you are a pacifist, look, man, sometimes you have to have
my hand is forced.
Sometimes you have to have the courage of a mama mouse standing up to you against, but when she's trying to save her babies.
Yeah. If you end up in a state of constant like hypervigilance, you end up like the violent anti-theist or bunker people.
I have a very good friend of mine.
You don't want to be scared. Don't bury yourself.
A very good friend of mine. He's a particularly big dude who got attacked when we were younger. And he didn't think it made much effect on him, but it left a form of PTSD into him that eventually had him going to therapy because he found himself just intermittently patrolling his own home with a firearm because and never approaching a doorway without having an angle on it because a dude ran up and smacked him in the back of the head with half of a brick, and it didn't do anything to him physically, it just did psychologically. You know, and these things can cause complexes, but the thing that can help them is to be aware that the threat's not as big as your mind has made it, and that we live in a world that has made all of us exaggerate threats as a control strategy, and that's designed to induce anxiety in you, and I don't want that for any of you.
Yeah. Man, I say we go out on it.
Yeah, man.
Thank you guys so much for joining us.
We'll be back here in just a little bit.
Dang straight. Special guest, Jay Merck. Stay tuned for the tattered map. We're going to be rolling at prime time here just around the corner.